Helmand province in '09 was the most dangerous place on the planet. Very first mission, 6 of us got Medevac, I was one of them. They were bringing in a Black Hawk to pick us up and bring us back to Kandahar. Someone come running into the medic tent and they're like, ID strike 30 miles south, they got critical. So as the helicopter was coming in, it just powered up and went to the ID strike. Rocket came in, and the last thing you remember is just to suck the air out of your lungs. The ears are ringing, getting a deployment. I see this light went right up to this aircraft. Ends up going to a complete dead stop. And next thing you know, it darts above it, beside it, below it, out front, and then out of nowhere, it went bang, straight up like a bullet from a barrel. If I am a person of faith, then I'm gonna have to find out, is this real or is it not?
All right, welcome back to the show. Today we have on a very fun special guest. We have on Justin Doefler. He is a Brainerd International Raceway announcer, fellow Minnesotan, Minnesota National Guard, and he served in Afghanistan. He's an 88 Mike. He served convoy security in Afghanistan from 2009 to 2010, and upon which is the reason why we're all here today. And we got Nate Skinner on, good friend, also part of the Minnesota National Guard. And but we're all going to sit down and talk about Justin and his background and kind of, you know, how you joined the military and everything. But we also have a very insight to what your experiences were that is unique to you in Afghanistan, not just combat, but encounters with a UAP. So that's going to be a majority of our episode. We're going to break that down and discuss that, what Justin's experiences were, and Nate's also here to kind of help out with that and stuff, you know, and to help the conversation flow. So I'm really excited. Justin, thank you for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been, it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Nate, thanks for coming on. Man.
Yeah, happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
Back. All right, cool. Let's kick this off. Let's, your origin story. What's your X-Men origin story? And we'll go from there.
Well, you know, I was born up in Brainerd, Minnesota. It was just one of those things where single parent, it was just mom and I growing up. And by the time I was getting a little bit, you know, getting into the double-digit age, 10, 11, 12, stuff like that, it was like, man, I really want to join the military. You know, seen Iron Eagle, watched Top Gun as a kid. You know, I was a weird kid, I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, everyone else is out on the playground. I'm sitting here watching Airwolf inside the day center, you know, so there was just an interest with, you know, military, things of that nature. I almost joined the Sea Cadets when I was younger, but then by the time I hit 16 years of age, I was like, you know, I heard that I might be able to join the military at 17, and so I went to my mom, approached her with it, and she's like, absolutely not. And I'm like, well, you know, if you do the waiver and I sign at 17, I'll already have a year out of the way, and because I'm going to join at 18 regardless. And she realized he ain't changing his mind, so she went along with it, and you know, went to basic at 17, split up, and so yeah.
What year was that?
Back in '97, actually.
97. I said pre-GWAT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back then, the headquarters of the 194 in Brainerd was still mechanized infantry at the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I mean, I always like I said, every time I bring it up, I always love talking to guys that are pre-GWAT, pre-9/11. You know,
Okay.
It's like, what was the National Guard like in, you know, pre-9/11 days?
Well, it was very raw. You know what I mean? It was very straightforward, and times have clearly changed. So
Yeah.
But back then, it definitely. I think basically there was a lot of forging through fire.
Yeah.
To forge a soldier. So
Yeah. So what was, you know, career like getting then into like the lead up into 2009? Like, what was that like for you guys? Because like I said, where'd your career take you from there?
Well, in all honesty, you know, it was almost as if, you know, I had my regular job, you know, but then I had my drill weekends. And by 2005, I had already been, so when 9/11 happened, everybody was chomping at the bit. Let's rock and roll, you know. But, you know, for me, deployment never came. In 2003, I ended up going with Joint Force Headquarters. I did my 6 years in headquarters in Brainerd, and then I ended up doing 2 years with Range Control down there at Camp Ripley. And then in 2005, I got out. I ended up moving to Miami, Florida. And then in 2007, end of 2007, something like that, I ended up moving back to Brainerd, and I was like, you know, the camaraderie, the brotherhood, you know, everything. I'm like, so I ended up rejoining, which I was in for, I think, a month or two when I got a phone call. I was actually at a car dealership when I got the phone call, you know, attention to orders, all this other stuff. And they're like, you've been cross-leveled. And I'm like, never heard of it. What is it?
Yeah. Really.
And they're like, well, you just got pulled from your unit, sent to another unit, and you need to report Saturday for SRP. you guys are going to be going to Afghanistan. So
Out of Miami or out of?
no, when I was here back
sorry.
at Brainerd,
Oh, back-
because I had
okay,
moved
yeah,
back. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, that was an interesting breaking that news to the family and the girlfriend. So, but yeah, we ended up. I think one of the things I remembered, so deploying with the 114th Transportation Company under the 347th RSG, I think out of 187 soldiers, for some reason, something says we were like from 112 different cities around the state. So it was kind of that crew of nobody knows each other. Nobody's deploying with someone that they know each other's mannerisms and how the thought processes work. Everyone got shoved in, trained up, sent on deployment, and huge shout out to the 114th because we ended up, I think, the commander and first sergeant had to go to DC to receive an award for the 114th at a 95% readiness rate, walled down range overseas. So, the 114th, the men and women of the 114th really locked it in and got the job done. So,
Nice. So what was your training like getting into the lead up of like actually deploying? Like you said, you're doing convoy security or this?
yeah, so we had our initial kind of little train up there at Ripley, and then after that we ended up moving on to Indiana, and that's where we really started doing all right, prep for this is what you're going to be doing. Those that were going to be gunners, I was going to end up being one of them. So we got pulled basically from a lot of the mission task training the rest of the unit was going to do, and the gunners would do a special training, on ranges on how to be, what to look for, how to be a convoy security. So that was kind of what we were training up for. And then after that, it was came home, had a quick little R&R, and then got back and headed over.
What month did you guys take off?
So we were leaving at the end of July of 2009, and we got into what is it, Manas or Manas? Air
Manas,
Force.
yeah.
Manas, yeah.
Manas. I went through there. Yeah, Kyrgyzstan. Yeah.
So we had just landed there, and you could see what was at the Hindu Kush Mountains off of the distance. Yep. So we were sitting there, and of course it's an Air Force base. So you get a bunch of National Guard or Army people looking at it.
It's an awesome base.
Wow, these guys are living luxury, right?
Yeah.
But
Did you guys get the 2-beer allotment when you were there?
not on our way in country.
Oh, okay.
That would have been on the return.
Okay.
But on the way in, we were getting everything. We were doing all of our in processing, getting ready to drop in country down into Afghanistan. And while we were in Kyrgyzstan, all of a sudden it was like, well, we got loaded up. We're all lined up. And guys, you're going back to the barracks. We're going to be here for a few more days. Apparently, my understanding is that it was just too hot to fly in a bunch of troops at that, not temperature-wise, just tactical-wise.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't.
July of 09?
Yes.
Oh, into Bagram?
Into Kandahar.
And the Kandahar, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep. And so they're like, you know what, we're gonna wait a few days, let it calm down, and then we'll fly in basically under the cover of darkness.
Yep.
And that's how we got in. And then I think we were given like 7 days to acclimate to the weather. And so.
What was that like? Let's see your first,
Oftentimes when people ask me, because I think on the wet bulb, I think the heat index was like 136 or whatever. It was just, you know what I mean? You step off the plane and everyone's like, well, it's a dry heat. Yeah, so's your oven.
Yeah.
If you get in your oven, it's going to eventually get hot. Once you get above a certain temperature, just because it's dry doesn't, you know what I mean? So that was definitely an adjustment. And I think the one saving thing that we had there, if you remember Kandahar, was a green bean.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was actually up in Bagram, but I flew through Kandahar as a contractor, so I know the green beans. But we had green beans everywhere. So it was like green beans are absolutely delicious. We had them, in Takeda. We used that a lot in TQ and Camp Fallujah in my Iraq deployment. Green beans were clutch. But yeah,
it was a good time, you know. And of course, the moment we're in country, it's like that first night, you come under mortar attack. Kandahar actually had an air raid system. They had a warning system. So the moment something was launched, siren would go off, and you could always tell we were the noobs. We're the first one, where it's our first time on the ground there. And so, of course, everyone's running to the bunkers. You got people running out of the showers. It's like, well, he didn't care.
Yeah.
But hey, survival, everything. But, by day 3, day 4, it's like, I'm already so tired, exhausted. You're sitting at the chow hall eating, sirens go off, everyone's diving under the table, and you're still sitting there eating. You don't care. You know, it's
They know what you get there hitting you guys with was like rockets or mortar systems, or what was it that they were actually shooting at you guys?
so I never, when word in the wind, how they would set them up is basically on like washing machine timers. They might set up a rocket on like a washing machine timer and then walk away. So by the time it launches, there's no one to investigate because there's no one on site. So at that point, and it was always interesting when you would watch if Kandahar, if CAF did come under attack, watching the A-10s take off. It's like, well, we're going to see that, and pretty soon, and there it is. They just did a strafing run. So
It's cool hearing your guys' experiences from CAF, because I wasn't out there. I was up in Parker, so it's always fun hearing about what you guys experienced down in the South. So I know it was heavy contact. I mean, you guys, that was absolutely, it was ripping back in 2009 and 08, well, all the way through 08 to like 12.
Yeah, I think on one of the major news networks, they had said that Helmand province, I think in 09 was the most dangerous place on the planet.
Yeah.
And so the whole reason that we were actually brought in was to actually get prepared for the troop surge when President Obama would send 30,000 troops over. So we were there to actually help logistics, get all the forward operating bases set up. And I think basically the strategy was we're going to set up bases everywhere. We're going to choke out the Taliban. So.
Yeah, and that was, like I said, I was there 08, 09, and that's when you started seeing that push starting to flow in, more people starting to flow in. And then as a contractor in 2010, it was like, dude, it's game on. Like they were flowing into everywhere. So it was nuts. But so what was your guys' experience getting all your equipment in that first patrol? Into the Breach is excited to be teamed up with 9 Line Apparel. They are the best. They are a veteran-owned apparel company that embodies the American spirit. Go check out 9lineapparel.com for freedom-loving, patriotic gear perfect for your family members, first responders, veterans, and active duty service members. When you're done selecting the amazing merchandise and apparel 9 Line has to offer, punch in the code ITB20. That's India Tango Bravo 20 for a 20% discount off your next purchase at 9lineapparel.com. Thank you for listening, and now back to the show.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very first mission. 6 of us got Medevac. I was one of them. So the air conditioning in the vehicles basically kept the temperature, because you had the Duke inside the cab of the PLS, right? But and it was hot. All the heat from that motor is getting cooked inside into the cabin. But to keep our safety and our ballistic, we had to keep the windows shut. So it's not like you could open up the window, because then a sniper would just pick you off. So you're in full battle rattle. You're inside that thing, and the air conditioning kept the truck down to about 120 degrees, maybe 110. And about 5 hours, I was, I think I drank 18 bottles of water. Not once did I have to urinate because it was sweating out of my pores faster than anything. Sergeant Lumen was driving at the time, and I was his truck commander. And next thing you know, it's like there's a bunch of calls getting called up. 9 lines are going up.
Yeah.
We got guys dropping out.
Yeah.
And before I know it, out of nowhere, it's like I wake up and I'm like, well, what's going on? I was confused. And here's Sergeant Lumen hit me with the butt of his rifle.
Yeah.
And he's like, they're right outside. They're right outside. And here I'm sitting here thinking he's talking about the Taliban. I didn't realize I had lost consciousness. So as I'm a saw gunner, so of course I'm trying to get the belt and everything ready in the saw, and he's like, no. He's like, get your combat latch, and it literally took every ounce of strength that I had to even just pop that latch free.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's heat index in CAF was like $130. So when we opened up that door, the temperature inside our truck had climbed so high that when they opened up that door, that temperature rushing in felt like air conditioning. And they just grabbed me. I remember they pulled me out. I fell down into their arms. They got me down to the ground, immediately started taking all my gear off. And I was like, wait a minute. You guys just opened me up for a shot. And now I'm sitting here thinking the sniper's going to pick me off. And I think the last thing I remember before losing consciousness again was they just basically arm grabbed me from either side, started running, and I saw my boots dragging on the asphalt, and I kind of giggled.
Yeah.
And then the next time I woke up, we were in the MRAP, and they were hauling.
Yeah.
They were just moving, hit a pothole where a previous IED had hit. Yeah. So of course I'm laying on the floor on all these bags. Next thing you know, my face is right up to the ceiling.
Yeah.
Because we went airborne in that hole.
Yeah.
And medic was like, I got to stick you. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
And then after that, the next time I woke up, it was not good.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's, I mean, like, dude, heat cases are,
yeah.
that's no joke. I've never had it, thank God, but I've been real close, and it's, we've had the Medevac other guys for heat case, and that's no joke, man.
Well, they ended up telling me that I got brought to FOB Wilson. It was a Canadian forward operating base. And they ended up saying that, one, obviously you had heat stroke and then water intoxication. I didn't even know what that was.
Too much water, yeah.
And when I say I drank the 18 bottles of water and never urinated, I had flushed everything out. There was nothing to regulate the organs anymore. And so when I came to, nobody was speaking English at first. What do you think's running through your head at that point?
Yeah.
So, but then I saw one of my NCOs having a seizure on the table next to me. It was like, and of course you're scared. You wake up in a medic tent, no one's speaking English, and all of a sudden everyone's like, well, but at any rate, everything worked out.
Yeah.
I got brought back to roll 3. That night we came under a huge rocket attack at Wilson.
Yeah.
So that was sketchy. Very sketchy time.
Did you get up? You're like, or you just like lay in the bed after that?
No, so late that night we were actually Berglund and I were actually getting strapped up. They were bringing in a Black Hawk to pick us up and bring us back to Kandahar and get us more stabilized there. Well, as we were getting strapped down onto the cots, everything else like that, all of a sudden someone comes running into the medic tent. And they're like, nope. ID strike 30 miles south. They got critical. So as the helicopter was coming in, it just powered up and went to the ID strike. So we had been stabilized enough. They were like, you know what? You're good. You're going to hitch a ride back with an American engineer unit. So, but then that night, first rocket came in. We all got down under our cots. Like, that's going to do anything. Second rocket came in way closer. And then when that third rocket came in, the last thing you remember is just to suck the air out of your lungs. Your ears are ringing, and before you know it, you could hear rocks tinking on the roof. And one of the NCOs belts out. He's like, well, it's been nice knowing you guys, because the next one, they're getting lucky.
Yeah.
And then there was this big thunder boom, but it was outgoing. Canadians were firing back.
That was cool.
I think they were on a howitzer or something like that. So, of course, you run outside immediately. It's 2:00 in the morning. You're chain smoking, and
That's intense.
I mean, that's intense.
Welcome to Afghanistan, week 1.
Yeah. No shit. So, I mean, after you, like, did they get you all, recovered? Like I said, that's no joke. You have to recover for a few days. Or what's
so
your
the
recovery
unit
time?
ended up making their way all the way down to Leatherneck, where they were going to serve out, and we were going to serve out the deployment. So there was a couple of us that had been medevaced. And so we ended up hitching a ride on a 130 from CAF down to Bastion.
Okay. Yep.
And, landed at the British base. It's like 3:00 in the morning. Like, well, this is where you're going. And in the middle of some forward operating base in the middle of the desert. We'll figure it out. So.
How was that then? What was that experience like then, getting to Bastion and then moving on to you? What do you do right after that? Do you guys start getting into more patrols and stuff?
So at that point, so you're getting all set up, getting familiar for your first mission, and then I think our first mission, or my first mission, I believe, was going down to Dwyer, in RC South. So, and the first mission that we were going in there, if you've ever encountered what we call moon dust, where you can get 6-wheel, 8-wheel vehicle completely stuck all the way up to the frame, because it is literally like flour. You can be an 8-wheel drive and that thing will just sink right down. So we had to do vehicle recoveries. It was late at night. You're trying to walk through knee deep moon dust, and so by the time we were so tuckered out, beat down. But yeah, we hit the ground running.
Yeah. So what was your experience like overall then? Like, do you guys encounter any significant events while you're, IED strikes, resupplies, stuff like that, while you're doing convoy security? Like, what was anything that sticks out to you that's like, hey, this is
so initially
first one for sure.
Yeah. So initially when I got there, when we got there, they're like, right now, because they're kind of doing that integration, right seat, left seat, so we weren't going to jump. Those of us that trained up to be convoy security weren't jumping in the turrets right away. So they're like, you guys are going to drive PLS. We got the previous unit before they roll out to go home. They're going to provide the security. They're more familiar with the territory, procedures, stuff like that. Learn from them. Ditch all your training. You're now on the ground. This is your training. You know, you're in a real world scenario now. So at that point, you know, I was driving, and yeah, you know, we're going into those missions. Of course, everyone's on high alert because you're in the middle of a desert, and all of a sudden you see a light, and it's like, all right, someone's looking at you. Who and why? You know, are there hostile? Are their intentions hostile? Or, you know, so because a lot of the Afghans really did like us being there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't think people really realize that much. You know, yeah. So, but then my first few missions with that didn't really have any issues outside of getting stuck, stuff like that. It would be later in the deployment when we had contact. So
it was like that like then. Or, you know, would you guys get in your routine and, you know, any memories from doing, like I said, your routine, fun shit, stuff like, you know, soldiers get into?
Well, and that was the crazy thing too. You know, you're going to pack, you know, 160 people into a 120-man tent. So, you know, if you can't expand out, you can only build up. And of course, the first thing you want to do is make friends with the Seabees. You know what I mean? Because if you make friends with the Seabees, now you can build bunks. Yeah. You got access to plywood, screws, you know, hey, let me borrow your power drill, you know, saw. So, you know, we were getting all that up. But then about a month in, I got a letter when I got back from a mission. There was a letter on my cot, and it was like Department of the Army, Department of the Navy. And here I was getting sent to the Marines for tower guard. You know, so it's like, well, at that point, you know, okay. And I ended up doing, I think I was on tower guard for like 60 days. It was like 2 months. And then after that, I went back to my unit where I got sent to the Brits for 5 months. And then when I got back to my unit, that's when we went on a mission where it was a big NATO mission, and we got a big firefight on that one. But
what was that? You want to get into that one?
The what?
The big firefight mission?
Operation Lava 31, Op Lava 31, I think it was. It was right around the end of March of 2010, early April. And typically, you go out on a CLIP, combat logistic patrol. You got 20 vehicles, 5 gun trucks, and a scout. And I think on the BFT, I think I counted like 258 vehicles between Brits, Marines, Army. We're running a NATO resupply, and we're almost on no roads. You're going over sand dunes. You're going through wadis. So at that point, you know, it was, and you can only go as fast as the slowest vehicle. So I think average speed was, you know, you're a sitting target. And late one night, all of a sudden, Taliban started saying, hey, we got some easy pickings here. Unfortunately, we rolled 3 vehicles down into a gorge, including there was a Marine HEMET platform vehicle that had rolled. We got the recovery done there. We ended up getting to the place that we were going to resupply. And we ended up staying there for a few extra days, kind of had to do a little regrouping. And then when we went to go roll back, that's when the Taliban moved in and said, all right, we're gonna really hit this target. And yeah, first shots rang out that morning, about 11:30 in the morning, but it was at 9:15 at night when they finally launched a B-1 from Kandahar, basically to come on station. So, but during that time, you know, I mean, you had some of the guys. There was an episode, I think, Eyewitness War. I think it was like season 1, episode 10, the last half of that. It was called Sniper Hunt, but like the last 15 minutes, you know, I think they had aired some of that. So that was an intense time, but, you know, everyone made it. But back on tower guard, that was a difference at the beginning of the deployment, 1 month in, that September. Some interesting stuff happened.
Yeah, and we can definitely get into that. So, this is I'm excited for this portion. So, let's get into the story. Like what happened. You know, if you can go into the details, and then we'll start kind of getting into the meat and potatoes of what we came here to talk.
You're really excited about this part.
I'm very excited about this part. We can also dive into, if you want to get into that battle too. I'm more than happy to.
Well, there is one thing that I do want to put out, and that was, you know, in October, we did have a KIA, you know, just honor that brother, Specialist George Cawley. You know, he hit October 7th and succumbed to his injuries 3 days later. But, you know, he was the 114th KIA, and so it just, you know, put out his memory there.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Going back to September, though.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's rock and roll.
So I'm assuming you want to know what happened on Tower Guard.
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's kind of what what happened before that, and that's whatever.
Well, interesting. So, it is really crazy because everyone's always like, I don't want to be on Tower Guard, and it is it's boring.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And they can say that 98% of your deployment can be absolutely boring, but the moment there's anything, you know what I mean? What do they say? 20 minutes of whether it's combat or anything is you feel like you're living more than you have in your entire life combined.
Yeah. Yep.
So imagine if you see something that doesn't exist. You just realize you don't know anything. Mm-hmm. What you think you know, but that was September 4th. Like before that, when you're on Tower Guard, you're on high alert because you are the first, last, only line of defense against everyone that's sleeping inside. To everyone that's outside, the wolves tried to come in and take you out, right? So you're always on. When I say high alert, you might see things that you normally wouldn't see, because you're paying a lot more attention. So we'll go to September 4th because I know everyone wants to talk about that one. It's about 2:30 in the morning, and I'm sitting on Tower Guard, and in the desert. It gets cold at night. Well, at any rate, we had just gotten done doing our scans of the desert, and the perfectly clear night. So, I mean, anyone that's ever been on an ocean or in a desert where there is a zero light pollution, you're going to see the most stars you'll ever see in your lifetime. It's beautiful. And you can almost even see the colors of the Milky Way. It's creepy. So, but at any rate, we could hear this jet. It's like 2:30 in the morning. It's like, all right, well, it sounds like, probably a regular jet. I'm sure it's probably flying 35, 40, 1,000 feet, whatever, typical. But we're looking around. And of course, when you hear it, you have to look outside the ring because by the time the sound travels to you, it has already moved past. So you're looking. And it was like I couldn't see anything on the night vision. The hardware that we were giving, the technology that we were using at the time for Tower Guard, I was able to actually pull a pin and select infrared. And I turned everything to daylight. Bang. Found that jet instantly, had the heat signature, and I'm like, just looking at it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cool. Well, of course, being on Tower Guard, you don't want to lose your edge. Oops, sorry. Don't want to lose your edge, so keeping both eyes open. And I'm watching this thing, and like I said, if it's at 35, 40,000 feet, it's probably doing 500, 600 mile an hour. And I'm looking at its trajectory. I'm like, it's probably on its way to Kandahar. So didn't think anything of it. And out of nowhere, out of my peripheral vision from the horizon, I see it was almost like this light, 3/4 of a second, went from all the way on the horizon right up to this aircraft. Ends up going to a complete dead stop. And this jet flies right past it. And next thing you know, it darts above it, beside it, below it, out front, and then just sat there. And this jet's still cruising by. And I'm like, thought maybe there's a bug, like a sand flea darting around on the lens of this, So I pull it down, and get my T-shirt, and I'm trying to get that. And I look up, and I still keep seeing this. I'm like, wait a minute. And the guy that I'm on Tower Guard with, I'm like, tell me I'm not seeing things. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden he's looking, he's like, wait, what is... And I'm like, at that point, I'm like, give it back. Let me see. You know what I mean? Because my curiosity has just got me.
Yeah.
And so he gives it back, and bang, I lock right back on. And the whole time, this jet does not change course at all. Well, it does this a few more times, and then out of nowhere, it went bang, straight up like a bullet from a barrel. And I tracked it for a few more seconds until all of a sudden it dimmed so far out, all you could see were stars. And I'm sitting here thinking, all right, well, this thing just left the planet. That's gone. That's out of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here thinking, well, first off, okay, it didn't accelerate up to speed. It was at max velocity at moment of departure. Okay. Then your brain starts kind of almost having a 404 error. Wait a minute. From horizon to my 1 o'clock where we're seeing this jet, I'm sitting here. You would have to be doing such Mach speeds that you would hear a sonic boom. There would be a flame. Okay, prime example. Think about this. I ran the calculations one day just out of curiosity, and this is hindsight. We'll go back to that night, but in hindsight, There was one time I was watching on the horizon, all of a sudden I see what looks like a star coming up. And I quickly pull out my app real quick, and it's the International Space Station. Well, it's a couple thousand miles off the coast of California.
Yeah.
But I can see it on the horizon coming up. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I started a timer. It took 4.5 minutes to go from the horizon to directly above Minnesota as I'm watching this go by. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, that's traveling at 17,000 mile an hour. Now imagine if that was inside the atmosphere going way faster. No flame, no smoke trail. Think of all the NASA, Apollo, the Gemini missions on re-entry, bang, they're on fire. There's a huge smoke trail. Everyone's watching it. The plasma, it's so hot going around the heat shield, stuff like that. This thing just went hundreds of times faster than that. And there's none of these physics. The math ain't mathing with me right now. You know what I mean? And at that point, I'm like, well, now it just left the atmosphere. I'm like, keeping this one out of the logbook. You don't want to wind up on the 4th floor. You know what I mean? Or
can you describe like the shape that it was? Did it look like a Tic Tac? Was it a round sphere? Like,
so the interesting thing was at the altitude that it was at from our position, there was only one thing that I noticed, because at first I thought, all right, it just seems like one solid object.
Yeah.
And at that point, is it sphere? Is it oblong? Like people have said, a Tic Tac or whatever. I don't know. And I'm sitting here, well, it's just doing these straight point to point to point, angle turns. But out of nowhere, right before it actually went straight up and left, because I literally tracked it, like I said, until all I could see were stars.
Yeah.
It almost looked like I saw all of a sudden like a pitch change, like a twitch. I didn't know if it flipped. I don't know, whatever. And then just bang, it was gone. So, at that point, if it was a sphere, I wouldn't have seen a switch, like a position change. If it was, let's say, like a Tic Tac or oval, maybe I might see that. Or like some have said, they've seen things that are triangular or whatever. Okay, well then maybe there was, to be able to identify a change there.
So you think maybe it was square?
It's interesting that you mentioned that. We'll get into that later on. Okay. You're not going to like that. But at any rate, I would almost say more. And I'm going to be straight up and honest. I either thought it could have been a triangle or a Tic Tac. At any rate, I saw it change direction before bang. It was
so it's something like it oriented itself.
It oriented itself
in whatever geometry it is.
Exactly. And someone even asked me one time, what do you think it was doing there?
Yeah.
This was a question that I really got from someone was, what was your assessment of it? You know what I mean? And the only thing that blurted out of my mouth in the moment was, honestly, I thought it was either scanning the aircraft for something or someone. And then just gone.
That's wild. So,
well, and when you don't believe it, and I even wrote down because I had a journal. This ain't going in the logbook, that's for sure. Yeah. But I had a journal and I wrote down the date, time, location, everything that happened. And I even wrote I'll forever wonder.
I'll forever wonder.
I'll forever wonder. Well, I thought forever wonder.
So you said a couple of things, right? Like you said that you didn't report it. You didn't want to write it down in the logbook initially. And I understand why.
Career render. That'd be a career render.
Correct. But
especially like if you're dependent on tight degree. I mean, like, I feel like I could tell my guys, but it's like, that ain't going up. That's not going up.
The first thing that's going to happen, you're going to become the joke of the party too.
That's 100%. I get that.
When Commander Fravor was talking about disclosure, and this is years ago on Rogan, right? Like maybe 8 years ago.
He was talking because he was the F-18 pilot, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And he was saying that like we don't talk about this stuff because we're pilots and we will not be flying again if people think we've lost our minds.
But they're seeing it.
But they're seeing it, they're experiencing it, they're
100%.
They know something happened. But you alluded to the fact that you eventually did tell somebody, and so we're going to get into that because I'd be fascinated to find out exactly who you told.
I do want to go back to the night of. So, like, you had someone on watch though with you,
right?
Is that person? Have you talked with them? Like I said,
no. So I've even gone back through my my journal because I was trying to find out who it was that night, and I don't think I wrote down the name of the person.
So is it like
from
somebody
that
you didn't
night.
know, or is it like another NATO ISAF or
No, so it was a Marine.
Marine? Oh, okay, got it.
Yep.
Okay.
So when I was on Tower Guard, I was attached to the Marine 510
okay.
headquarters 2nd Med.
Yeah, yep.
And so, working with the Marines on Tower Guard. But yeah, people that,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, people were like, can you find him? Can you reach out? I'm like, that name was so generic.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's way above my clearance to try to find this person.
It's like a Rodriguez.
It
or
would be
something.
wild. It would be wild with your connections, Ethan.
Like a
Marine Corps.
Johnson or an Anderson or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, Johnson Anderson.
Right.
something Like
Could
that,
you
yeah.
imagine with your Marine Corps connections, like this Marine is listening to this episode
Yeah,
and just
absolutely.
calls
Yeah,
you
if
and
any Marines, I would put it out there. Any Marines remember
September 4th, 09.
Yep, September 4th, 2009, Justin Doefler, National Guard boy, hanging out with you on post down in Bastion? No,
Leatherneck.
Leatherneck, Camp Leatherneck. Oh, maybe, I don't know, you'll see, he'll be, check it out or, if it's in the network. But, well, we do have some enthusiasm. The people I'll be sharing this with they have very wide connections. So, especially one of the accounts that I know will share it. But yeah, they work in this realm and whatnot. So, but yeah, I mean, awesome if we could connect you guys. But yeah, I was curious that okay, and then that makes sense. If you got thrown with a random Marine, you're not going to remember, like, oh yeah, who he was. And maybe you probably made small talk. Or do you remember anything about him? Like like where he grew up? I mean, typically you try to bond with somebody on post, do you remember it all? Like what?
I think my journal's actually out in my truck right now. I can go find out.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, it's not big. I was curious, like if they're,
So because we would always have sometimes different Marines and stuff like that, and of course you got that inter-service, ribbing and things of that nature. I felt so bad. There was one night, it wasn't this night, but there was one night it dropped down to like 20 degrees in the desert.
It does. Oh yeah.
And
cold.
earlier in the day it's 110 degrees. Well, I'm sitting there walking down for briefing and I've got my full on rucksack and I got all my winter gear and everyone's like, you're an idiot. It's so hot out. Why are you? It was 2 o'clock in the morning. And so I'm getting in my full on, suit and I felt the poor Marine, the one Marine that I was with was absolutely borderline convulsing. He was shivering so cold that I took off some of my gear because I was actually too hot.
Yeah.
And I feel bad. It's like we had all this nice gear and the Marines didn't. Marines didn't. No wonder they're so cranky all the time.
Well, that was a story out of Marge of the Battle in 2010. They dropped them in, and guys were getting frostbite, going hypothermic into the operation, and everyone was like, "Why are they getting this?" It's because it was like March or April, but I'm like, the temperature
was that
drops.
February 11th of 2010? Was that?
It might have been. Yeah.
There was a aircraft I think that did a NATO signal because I think I got that. They were flying, sending out a whole bunch of rings for the next hour and a half. There was a plane that was sending smoke, and all he did was sit there flying in circles nonstop for the next hour and a half. It was just ring after ring after ring that was blowing downwind. And I think that might have been the signal. But that day when you're talking to Marja?
Marja, yeah.
Yes.
Because I was in there, I was not there, but I was in Afghanistan 2010 when that Marja was kicking off.
Yes, the amount of helicopters that started coming into Bastion, and I was like, oh my goodness, what is going on down there? It was like instant prayer, just for the brothers and sisters.
Yeah, there's guys I knew that fought there. So
Okay.
But yeah, so you go back to September 4th. That was
September 4th,
September
09,
4th.
yep.
September 4th, 09. I want to write that down so I don't forget. So that initial experience then, I mean, like I said, you're like, holy shit, what was that? What's going on? What, like I said, we did talk about what's going through your mind. You're like, what is it doing? Was it, and then after that, that's insane. If I would have seen something like that, I wouldn't stop thinking about it.
Well, so there was something that was interesting is, you're already doing 16-hour days. And of course, by the time we would get back, we would go through debrief and then get brought back to the tent. It's already 7 a.m. You know what I mean? So you're happy if you see 4 or 5 hours of sleep, but you're already awake by 9 because inside that tent, it climbed to 120.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So pouring sweat, all this other stuff. So at that point, I think the exhaustion from such long days, I don't want to say you didn't have time to think about it. The rest of that night, the rest of that night, because I'm sitting there after I did another scan of the perimeter, and I started looking off at the horizon. I'm like, well, how far would that be? The human eye can only see 2 miles or 10 miles, all this other stuff. But when something is at 200, at, let's say, if the space station is at 250 miles and you can see that 6,000 miles away, well, then how far away is something that's at, let's say, 40,000 feet? You know, I mean, your brain starts trying to run math, and I don't like math.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's any mathematicians out there, I got some stuff for you. I'll give you some numbers.
Especially like 2009. Not a lot of this information is like out there.
No.
You know what I mean? It's not like now, 2026, where we have people talk about UAPs. We have people talking about speed, tic-tacs, all these stuff. Unclassified video coming through.
No propulsion system.
I'm glad you brought that up. And you look at some of those, you know, what they call observables or whatever, you know. You know, hypersonic velocity, what, you're over 5,700 mile an hour. Well, imagine, you know, and I ran the calculations, like, wait a minute, if this is the actual speed, if my math is right, this would put it to the moon in like, I think it was like 4 minutes, or it put it to the planet Venus in just under an hour. I'm like, there's no possible way. I'm like, all right, I got to be bad at math. So, but you've got no smoke trail or open flame from atmospheric resistance. Okay, so at that point, you're looking at, let's say, transmedium travel, especially if it's going off from our atmosphere out into space, whatever. All right, but number two, then you've got the hypersonic velocity. Okay, and then what was one of the other ones? Yeah, transmedium travel, I think it was like hypersonic velocity. The fact that on infrared, you would see it, instant heat signature. If there was a propulsion system, all right, you would either see you'd flame the engine heat, the rotors, so there's no rotors, no heat, so there's no rockets, there's no propulsion there, okay, and no jet engines. And what is it, like the three ways that we have are either rotor engine, combustion, so that'd be your rockets, or a jet engine. But either way, you've got propulsion. When this is dead silent, that's the other thing, the lack of any audio. You can hear this jet and its jet engine. This thing is completely dead silent. There's no atmospheric resistance. Again, you got Apollo capsule coming in, that thing's blazing on fire, right? You can see a smoke trail across 5 states. This has nothing.
Yeah.
So, you know,
did it stop on a dime?
Instantaneous. Instantaneous. Like, I mean, you've got that jet that's flying by. This thing came screaming right up to it, and it was literally instantaneous.
What was the size of it compared to the jet? So if you're looking at, like, you know what I mean? Like, was it a third of the jet, half of the jet?
I would almost say about a third.
Yeah.
Possibly about a third.
So it's big enough, you're like, okay, that's next to the, or you're seeing, it's interacting with the jet.
Right. And then you know, but the thing is, the moment this thing went to an instantaneous stop, your brain just said, wait a minute, that's not possible. Because if there's anyone inside that, they just went liquid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't go.
Yeah, you don't survive that.
No, you don't go from, let's say, anywhere from 200,000 mile an hour up to 2 million mile an hour and stop on a dime without being vaporized. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but then the moment, and it's just hovering. Well, as the jet goes past it, like I said, above it, it's only moving in straight lines. You know?
Do you think it was like, based on your observation, was it trying not to be seen by the jet? And was it trying to stay above the jet or behind the jet? Like, or do you think it was trying to be seen by the pilot?
It was doing that all the way up until the very last time I saw it. It made its final move. It went directly out front. Now the pilot would have been able to see it, because you know, people are like, well, did the aircraft do any evasive maneuvers, stuff like that, right? No. I don't even think I don't know, whoever was flying didn't know it was there at first.
So you think that when he got out in front of him,
and then it just sat there
in front of him,
no movement whatsoever as the jet went past, and then that's when I saw the quick little turn, and then.
So you wonder, I think back to that same time, like, so you got the Marine on post, but who was the pilot flying that mission, that sortie? You know, like, that's, you know, like, did he see it? You know, that, because that goes through my mind. It was searching his aircraft, or we assume.
That's exactly what it looked like to me. It's either looking at someone or something scanning the inside. You know, so was there a weapon system that it was interested in, or was there a person, you know, that was being transported? Whatever, it took interest in that specific aircraft and then said, I'm out.
Do you know what type of aircraft it was, by any
I
chance?
couldn't tell. Like I said, 35, 40,000 feet at
you're just
night
kind
with
of like-
infrared.
you're just kind of seeing it. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Check that out. September 4, 2009, if you're flying a sortie and you're a pilot out of Camp Leatherneck, Afghanistan.
Well, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't from Leatherneck.
Sorry, not Leatherneck, flight it.
Yeah,
around
it
the
was.
area.
It was already at that altitude.
Yeah.
Altitude. So it was just on its probably way to Kandahar,
Oh, okay, yeah. Heading out to Kandahar.
heading west to east.
Yeah. West to east. Check it out. Hopefully you find that. That'd be awesome. Track that pilot down.
It's a smaller world than it.
You know what?
than
It's
it
a
was
way
then.
smaller. Okay, pilots are even a smaller world. So yeah, you can find somebody flying in 2009. No, that's nuts. I mean, because like I said, we start talking about that, like just the speed, the change in direction. I mean, like I said, I'm still thinking about like what I'd just be in your shoes.
Well,
I'd just be like, oh my God, what's going on?
And the rest of that whole shift, you're still trying to make sense
You're
of it.
buzzing from that.
Yeah, you're absolutely, because I don't believe in these things. But I just captured it on infrared.
Yeah.
I watched this thing, meaning it's physical.
Yeah.
So the rest of that shift, I've got so many questions, but then by the time the morning hit, you're done. You want to rack out,
Yeah.
So you hit the rack, but then the next day, for a couple days, you're questioning it, and you're like, you know what? You can't tell anyone. So eventually you suppress it, and then the rest of the deployment, every day is the same.
So did you tell any of your battle buddies eventually? Did you come out and just say like, hey, this is crazy. This sounds weird, but like I ran into this, and like, if you did, did they react a
told
certain
no
way?
one.
No. So you kept this to yourself.
This I not only kept to myself for
Not even over
years, not over to no one in the military, not a battle buddy, no one. I didn't tell family members until probably 4 or 5 years later. So I had already been home for like 4 or 5 years. What's really, okay, so we're going to,
Let me tee this up.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
explain,
yeah,
Let me explain like how Justin got here today, right? Because I think that this is super fascinating, and for anybody listening, I hope it helps to build context, right? I was up in Brainerd a number of years ago, probably 6 to 8 years ago.
Okay.
I was at my friend Sean's house, and we were having a fire outside.
Yeah.
And I remember looking up and seeing a string of lights moving in the night sky, right? And I'm sitting there staring at it, and I'm wondering what it is. And then I see a band of lights above that slowly moving. And I said, hey, Sean, like, what is that? And he goes, dude, I have no idea, but I guarantee you I can tell you who does.
Yeah.
And so 30 seconds later, Sean is handing me the phone, and I've never met Justin before. I've never heard his voice before. I have no idea who I'm talking to. And I'm like, hey, dude, nice to meet you, right? Like, I'm looking at this weird stuff in the sky, and Sean says, you know what it is. And
I think for me, I was like startling is what I blurted out.
instantly you said, actually, that's low Earth orbit. That's
Yeah,
Elon
you're like,
Musk's
I'm dialed
Starlink.
in.
He goes, do you see that second line of satellites? That's the mid-Earth orbit.
Yeah.
And then he really starts getting in. And
Yeah, because the higher altitude you go, you're going to see your satellites moving slower. The lower Earth orbit ones, they're going a lot faster. You know what I mean? So and again, when people see things and, since the real rise of the conversation, it seems like everybody's seeing stuff.
Yeah.
95 to 99% of them are going to be explainable. It's that 0.1 or that 1% that everyone in all global governments are like, we need this conversation. What is it? Who is it? Why are they here?
Clearly there's something going on. Because, I mean, like I said, in the last few years, representatives are getting involved. All the declassification of things are happening. Everyone's going to be like, there's something going on. There's something going on. And the footage that's coming out now, obviously that's still unknown, at least to us, like in the public eye, but you're seeing these things happen. I'd say the leaks are getting out, but like the footage they're just showing us, like this is wild. Like these are insane things. And then you start reading more and more accounts, and you start to believe the pilots are, like I said, they don't want to bring this up, but they're starting to come forward a little bit more. And they're all legitimately credited to be like, yeah, these are pilots, these are guys that served. They ran their missions, and they've seen not only in the air. Now we're talking about air, but we're also like underwater. Like that's another one that they've been talking about. I don't think it's as many.
The USOs and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yep. Which is a crazy, amazing topic. It was super interesting. I don't know if you know much about it, but so
it's I'm literally at the social gathering at Sean's house.
Yeah.
And for the next 45 minutes, maybe it was 60 minutes, like I didn't see anybody because I walked away and I realized, I said, this conversation that I'm having with this Justin guy is about to be the most fascinating conversation I ever have in my life. And I removed myself from the party.
Yeah.
And I went and hung out in a back room somewhere. And it's the conviction in which Justin was explaining to me what not only happened in the moment that you saw what you saw, but recounting everything that happened after.
Yeah.
I was only in the moment of that conversation. It was so profound to me. And so fast forward, I get off the phone with Justin and I'm just like, what did I just like, what?
Who is this guy?
I'm having a moment. Like, what did I just experience? And then 30 minutes later, well, when we ended the call, you said something like, hey,
If you want, I can run you over.
I wrote some stuff down. I can run it over. And I was like, sure, no problem. 15, 20 minutes later, there's Justin in the front door handing me a manila envelope full of
all my research.
It was thick. And on the call, and I won't let the cat out of the bag here too much because I want you to explain.
Yeah, yeah, we'll definitely get into that.
He's telling me the chain events that took place that led him to handing me this paper. And then since then he's sent me the digital files, but I've showed this physical stuff and I've showed the digital files to my friends. And like, it is so much for them to absorb that they have a tough time. But to meet somebody so convicted by the experience, but also so convicted in their religious beliefs and purview and seeing the two of those mesh together, it's just, you were someone that like Ethan has to have on the show. I mean, period, end of story. Like this is, it's too, and right now it's too hot topic not to be discussing it if you have a person available. So fast forward then, maybe we don't want to yet, but you come off the deployment and you're still living with this experience. What was that like?
What's that like? Yeah, from, I know there's a few events that take place, you know, before you before you start research, but there's, you know.
Yeah. So what ended up happening, you know, and that initially, like I said, you know, we got into Afghanistan, I think it was like August 1st, 2nd, whatever it was. So, you know, the first 30 days mission, then I went on tower guard, that happened. And, you know, there were some questions that I had, but one of the things that I really, your brain says, I don't believe in these things, for starters. And so it just kind of pushes it off to the back burner.
Yeah.
You know, because each day's, you're now in combat. You're in a war zone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You have another thing on your body.
Did you have a thought that maybe your brain was playing tricks on you or that you were fatigued or just overtired when you say, like, I don't believe in these things? Were you trying to rationalize it somehow?
That's why I was trying to verify from that second source. Because at that moment, even like I said, when I took the lens down, I'm trying to clear, is there a sand fleet darting around on the lens? Is something internal? Is this, you know what I mean? So
and that Marine verified that what you were seeing was happening, right?
Yeah, to the point that he wanted to keep watching it. I'm sitting there saying, give it back, give it back, give it back. I want to keep watching too.
Over the bino. Or,
right. I'm the one that, it's a little handheld device that is just sweet. But.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I mean, like I said, I imagine that too. I mean, I'd be buzzing because I believe in UFOs for a long time. So I'd be like, oh my God. But then you are getting into firefights, you know.
I hadn't been in anything like this yet.
Like you have other things to worry about.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't like dwell on that, you know.
Right. And you kind of put it in the back burner.
Yeah.
I think in my head, I was like, you know what? I wrote it down in my journal. Later on, I can go back. You know, there's one movie that says, you know what? You'll have the rest of your whole life to think about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think what I did is, you know, because I was so focused on the task at hand, it's written down.
Whoa.
I am so sorry.
Oh, you're good.
And how bad did
I just turn it a little bit.
a little bit more?
Keep going.
A little more?
Keep going. Hold on. Keep going. Right there. Perfect.
All right.
You can edit that out.
We'll keep it in.
It just goes to show that I'll fling my arms everywhere.
Yeah, it's all good.
Oh yeah. But no, that my brain just said, you know what? It's written down. Put it on the back burner. You can deal with it later. You got bigger stuff to deal with right now. Focus. Keep on the task at hand. So that was the mindset when I went into that deployment.
Absolutely.
Every single day, you're locked into what you got to do. You know.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, like, yeah, you're on a combat deployment. You got to You got to do your job. Yeah. So what then you get off that? Did you think about it then after the deployment? Did it come back to you? You know, like when does your mind kind of start snapping back to it? And you're like, that You know, like
So with the loss of George, and then with some other things that had happened, of course, obviously, the attack during Oplava, 31 and stuff like that. And then at that point, you're nearing the end of the deployment, the following June, you're getting ready to come home. So it's like at that point, you're just focused on getting home. By the time I got home, everyone's like, oh, what happened? So of course you're going to go through all those weird conversations. Look, I just want to chill out, have fun. You know what I mean? So, and I would mention some things that happened. I wasn't ready for that conversation. Because again, anytime that would come up with anyone, look at that over the last 50, 60, 70 years. First thing that's going to happen is you're going to get one, laughed out of the room, and two, bang, if you want to shut someone up, slap conspiracy theorist label on them, you know what I mean? And then everyone will just disregard them, which is crazy. It's like, why are more and more of those people with those old labels starting to be proven right lately? But in the moment, you're like, I can't talk about this. Absolutely not. Because everyone's going to be like, I think you finally popped. I think you cracked.
You got a career to protect.
Well, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and at the same time, do you want your family looking at you weird too? Like, did he lose it over there? We don't know what happened. And so you stay quiet about it for a while. And when I say a while, I'm going to go 7 years. I didn't say anything until 2017. As a matter of fact, it was October 11th of 2017. I was sitting, I had the day off, all this other stuff. I'm like, I'm taking a nap. You know what? It's going to feel good to take a midday nap. So it was like 11:30 in the morning. I woke up out of a dead sleep and I had a dream that for some reason this dream hit me so hard. I ran over, I started drawing something, and I wrote down every single thing that happened in that dream, down to the exact details. And I dated it, all this other stuff. And it was like out of nowhere. So this was a little, I don't want to say eerie. And I have this written down. I want to say, I think it was about 6 or 7 days later. It was about a week later. I'm sitting in the living room, wife's in the kitchen. Or no. So I think I'm sitting in the living room, wife's in the kitchen, and out of nowhere, this TV show, Ancient Aliens, comes up.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I'm sitting there watching this. I'm like, this is like great entertainment, blah, 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 but I'm like, and some good points, and again, don't believe in none of this stuff. And out of nowhere, something popped on. There was an image that came across the screen, and I'll never forget, I almost smashed the remote, the pause button, and I just stared at it, and all of a sudden I'm like, babe. And she's like, what? And I'm like, grab that sheet of paper on the table. Mind you, I had drawn on this like a week earlier. So, and she goes and walks over, and she grabs it and she's like, what about it? She looks at it or whatever. And I'm like, look at the TV. And she looks at the TV. It's the exact drawing that I drew. Now, this is where it gets weird. I'm like, all right, this had to have been a previously aired episode or whatever. So, I'm sitting there going down to the information. Nope. Right now, this is the hour. This is actually, it's first airtime. Huh. Well, all the blood drained out of her face, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But out of nowhere, it was like something in me prodded. And so my wife ended up buying me a new Bible. And it was like, I'm one of those people.
Okay, before we get to the Bible piece.
Yes.
You told me on the phone call that you saw something that completely, you said it, I think the quote was almost exact. It was like, this clashed with my faith belief system to the point where I had to figure out what it was that I saw. And so when we talk about grabbing the Bible, it's because you're a man of faith, right?
Yes.
You have religious conviction. And after the moment, right, as you're trying to come to grips with what it was, you realizing that this is directly clashing with everything you think you know.
I'm glad you just brought that up, because there was a statement that I had made that back then, it would have been, the night that I saw it, at that time, would have been a faith shaker. You know, that was a faith shaker at that time because you've been told that doesn't exist, all this other stuff. So when you physically see it on infrared and you're tracking it, its movements, it's all this other stuff that defies our known laws of physics, okay, your brain is now, you know, at that point, your brain is now at war with, well, what have I been taught? You know, but again, back then, you have to put that aside, get back on mission, you know. So later on, when I finally end up having that, and I had written down in one of my notes one day, I was like, if a person of faith sees something that goes against their beliefs, how will they reconcile, or, you know, I forget how would they reconcile, you know, the two, you know, so with what they just saw. You know, how do you reconcile that? And so at that point, I think...
And to be clear, you've never had an experience like this prior to the point?
No.
Have you ever been visited at night, you know, over Christmas by like 3 or 4 ghosts or anything like that? No paranormal anything in your background?
Never had any paranormal thing, nothing like that.
This is one isolated
This
incident.
is the sole isolated incident, and like I said, it was physical because I'm tracking it on infrared.
Now you are one of those people who had that experience or a similar experience, and now you are trying to figure out what that means.
Yeah, well, and I think one of the things that ran through my head in 2017 was, all right, you know what? If I am a person of faith, all right, it's then I'm going to have to find out, is this real or is it not? You know, the Bible, there's not going to be any cherry picking. It's either going to be 100% true or it's not.
And how were you raised? Like, what religious belief system did you come up in?
Our family would, you know, at the time when I was real younger, you know, Catholic, and then and a Baptist, you know, and before you know it, it was like, you know, I ain't gonna lie. By the moment I turned, you know, 18, this is my time, you know. So it was all about me. It was all about, you know, what can the world offer me and have my time to have fun. You know what I mean? And so I think in some aspects, I don't want to say I walked away from the faith, but at that time, I definitely put it on the back burner.
It wasn't the focus.
It was not my focus.
Yeah.
You know, and between, you know, I don't want to say selfishness or just living my best life and, you know, being in the garden and stuff like that, but it wound up, something had to wake me up to say, time to punch that time clock and get back to work. And I think that happened October 11th, 7 years after the fact.
Yeah. So what did you do then after that? After you see that?
You said she lost.
Yeah,
the blood.
the blood drains out of her face, you know. So, and instantly, it was like over the next few days, she was like, you know, where is he? What's going on? You know, it was like, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know, I'm trying to get answers. I was doing so many Google searches because in this moment, I just saw something.
Like you were gone, like you were physically gone because she's asking where you are?
Well, there was times that I was in the garage for hours.
Just trying to reconcile this.
Yes, because I'm doing search after search after search after search because you just saw something on TV literally that almost validated a dream that, wait a minute, reopened something from a box that you locked up 7 years ago and never talked about. And now all of a sudden, that's the only thing that's on your mind. And your brain is now saying, okay, I need to reconcile the two. Because right now, the way I was brought up and what I literally physically just saw, these things are kind of clashing. And so at that point, I think, you know, the wife kind of saw, she's like, oh boy, he needs answers. But he really is looking, and she's like, you know what, maybe this will help. She went and bought me a Bible. You know, and I've had plenty of them before in my life, but, you know, so she ended up buying me one. And, you know, at that point, it was like I was reading 1 to 3 hours a day. And I went cover to cover in, what was it? It took me, was it 750 hours, I think, and I read the first time I read it through, it took me 9.5 months. It was like 750 hours, I think, that I had tallied up between reading 1 to 3 hours a day and then all the research I was doing when you combined it. And when I got done, it was like, I was so exhausted psychologically, you know, that's a lot of data to take in. So at that point, I took like 6 weeks off and then I started all over again.
Yeah.
And it took me over 1,000 hours of research and reading combined. And before you know it, I found the second time through, I missed at least 80% the first read through. You know, and then I ended up taking I think it was like 2 months off. It took me 27 months to read it the second time.
27 months.
27 months.
Really?
I slowed down that much. And I was taking note after note after note to the point that I'm like, all the verses that are dealing with just this one topic, I'm going to set that aside. And if I find more verses that are on that topic, I'll just add it to that topic. Before you know it, I'm coming up with 10, 12, 15, 20, 25, 30, 32, 33 different topics. And I'm like, and the more I'm reading, I'm finding verses that correlate to these specific things, right? So I'm like, okay, now I'm getting all these multiple categories, but the more I was reading and slowing down, like I said, so it took me 27 months, the second read through, but I am creating a huge list of notes that now, if you've got questions on a single topic, when you put all the verses together of that one specific thing, out of nowhere, you're starting to open up, you're getting a higher pixel resolution. You know what I mean? And now images in focus and things of that nature. So
Are you, when you're doing this research, are you, you know, so this is 2017, you started to go by 27 months, so you're getting into 2018, 2019. Stuff, this subject starts to burst open a little bit more. Are you taking in other works as well, like referencing other researchers or referencing other, you know, guys that have been trying to go down this road, like other UFO, I don't say enthusiasts by any means, but like, you know, like researchers?
actually, I
UAP.
stayed away from that.
Okay.
I actually tried to guard myself from that because I'm like, I don't want my mentality to be tainted by another person's story. I need to lock down first off, what I saw, and then I need to go and do my research and absolutely, you know, do that.
So this isn't just a matter of you locking yourself away for a little while and your wife casually looking for you. This is now years of research, years of study. Was there ever a point where she was like worried for you?
Yes. And I got to tell, you know, Elodie is a very strong woman. She stood by my side, but she did tell me, I'm starting to get concerned because I feel like this is starting to become an obsession. Those were her words, you know. And again, when you're doing 1 to 3 hours in the morning of research and then the next 4 to 5 hours before bed, you know, she was getting concerned, you know. But once everything started, when I started doing so much note taking on all these different topics, that when she started seeing it, she's like, it was almost starting to make sense. She's like, okay, I think, you know, he needs this for him, just, you know. So at that point, she became very supportive, things of that nature. Just, hey, just remember, you still got a family to think about too, right?
Yeah.
So
Did she become a pseudo expert on the subject because you were
By
feeding
proxy?
into her?
she right now could probably recite verbatim, word for word, things that I say.
And how long have you been married?
So we've actually been together since 2000. Well, so I think met in 2008, and we got married in 2018. So, you know, 2017, immediately it was like, you know, because I ain't gonna lie, I had commitment issues when I was younger. You know, I flat out told her, "Yeah, we ain't getting married," blah blah blah. You know, but no, out of nowhere, it was like one day I woke up, and through this first year of research. And I realized I've got a woman that's been with me for a decade. I don't want to lose her, you know. And so in 18, you know, in front of one of our you know, big events or whatever, I asked her, and she said yes. And you know, 2019 we got married.
That's awesome.
April 27th. So
That's good. That's awesome.
yeah.
So you, like you said, you're going through all this research. What happens at the, like, what are you finding out, and what's the, I don't want to say the conclusion of it. I don't want to like gloss over it, but what's going on as you're researching it?
That's a great question. I also want to know at the there was an event that took place out of the blue too at the conclusion of your research, right? Where like people had a conversation with you that you weren't expecting. we had a conversation about this. Like, you were at home one day and some government officials showed up. Was that, am I misremembering something?
No, so, well, there was one time that and it was, but I think it was like an FBI guy showed up because he was doing a security check on someone else that I knew.
Okay.
So, but if you're talking about like the unidentified episode, that was where they actually sent someone to my house, picked me up, but it was like, again, you're trained hyper awareness, right?
For the audience's sake, when you talk about the unidentified episode.
Yeah. What's that? Yeah. Dig that in.
The one that aired on the History Channel back in 2019.
Okay. So your work got to the point where the History Channel picked something up. I mean, how do we get from?
Yeah, how do we
Okay,
get from
so
research to that?
jumping from the research to that, because now I was in that first year and a half of research, and all of a sudden I see this show on one night, and it's called Unidentified Inside America's UFO Investigation, whatever it was called. I don't know. And I'm sitting there watching it, and it was like out of nowhere. I think there was 1 or 2 episodes that the moment I saw it, it was almost like, when you feel, I don't want to say vindicated or validated.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, except you're like
that you were crazy.
I wasn't concerned, but your mind can't help but think back to the last 70 years of people on the topic of, hey, they're all crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're trying to make sense of it. You're trying to log it down scientifically, mathematically. How is this even possible? You'll even, look at it spiritually. What am I? You're trying to figure it out because you've been told it doesn't exist. So at that point, when I see this, and then at the end of the episode, it's like, if you've had send, information to this email or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, I guess what I was told is I sent one of the most cryptic ones ever.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I did not basically say anything outside of September 4th, 2009, 2:30 local Afghan time. Track your target west to east. Also do a NASA inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I phrased it that way is because you got a military that's watching everything basically from 400 or 500 miles down to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this thing went past that. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to do some other, you're going to have to ask the other guys too, maybe, if they, on the broader spectrum of tracking, so
you wrote into the History Channel and told them to do their research.
I gave them basically the location. I gave them the location, the date and time, and look it up.
And did they do the research?
Now, all I know is I think it might have been a week or 2 later, and bang, I am getting contacted, and they're like, Lou, they are really interested in what you have to, some questions, and all of a sudden I do it, and they're like, all right, well, we'll get back to you. And before you know it, that information got passed up the flagpole. Higher upper echelons are looking into it, and I'm pretty sure they're probably contacting, because you got to remember, half these people probably work in the Pentagon and stuff like that.
Upper echelons as far as like in the government now?
Would not surprise me.
Or at the History Channel?
Both.
Okay.
It wouldn't surprise me, but regardless, next thing you know, I'm getting contacted, and they're like, can we get you to New York on this date?
So History Channel brings you out.
I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I can't afford that. And they're like, no, we're flying you. We're doing everything. We'll have a limo pick you up at the house and all this other stuff. And it's just basically like a 4-door, really long Lincoln.
So you're hanging out at home, and they just send a limo to Brainerd.
Yeah.
And they drive you down to Minneapolis Airport, and boom, you're over to New York.
I'm jumping on a plane going to New York. And it was, and again, because you're taught to really pay attention, right? And so, of course, the first thing I'm in, and I'm seeing pinhole cameras everywhere.
What type of building were you brought to? Was this like a studio? Was this just
This was an undisclosed location that you would never know from the outside.
So this isn't History Channel execs at this point?
No, this was, you're walking into basically a warehouse that's set up.
For this
when I say undisclosed location,
Were you blindfolded to stop you from seeing where you were going?
No, they were great.
Yeah. That's cool. So was that just the thing they were doing for the show then?
Like, so,
Yeah, because they were bringing in a whole bunch of other veterans and stuff like that. You know, we went out, they gave us lunch, and then of course we went down, and it was like, all right, here's the deal. And so that episode, it was Unidentified season 2, episode 1, and it was titled UFOs in Combat. So they opened up season 2, obviously, with the whole story that I, had. They brought in a couple analysts to try, they got to do what they got to do, try to discredit the person, and so, one of the individuals is like, there's some new technology that was being used in Afghanistan and things of that nature. And he's like, and one of the other things that we've been using is this thing called Angels where, an aircraft can drop rockets and they'll actually fly around to take the hits from other yeah, but they have propulsion systems.
Yeah.
That, you know what I mean? This didn't.
Yeah.
Nice try.
Yeah.
Then when the actual episode aired, that's when I was like, okay, what did I just do? Because it was almost like, all right, you really opened up, I don't want to say a can of worms, because all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're going to the assistant undersecretary or whatever, for Secretary of Intelligence is on the show talking about your case, meaning this guy now knows your name. And before you know it, it's like, oh yeah, there's a guy from Skunk Works that is now talking about your case. And it's like, all right, how many people, what did I just do? Did I do a bad move by, but it was like, you know what? No, you saw something, rip the Band-Aid off, because honestly, it's probably good that 7 years went by to get me to basically wake me up with a dream and say, it's time to punch that time clock and go to work.
You mentioned the name. You said Lou. Who are you referring to?
Yeah.
Elizondo at the time. At the time, him and Tom DeLonge had teamed up.
Tom DeLonge from Blink-182.
Yep.
I know the
I kind of assumed it was Elizondo. I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah.
Lou Elizondo, for the listeners, is a prolific UFO or UAP researcher, filmmaker.
He actually he did the research for the Pentagon. For a number of years.
He's very involved.
Hasn't he been involved in ATIP as well?
I think so. Okay, this is where I'm sorry.
Right. No, so they were working because I think but then I think they shut down the funding for ATIP or something like that. And
David Grush comes out of that knowledge of ATIP and how that program worked, and Lou Elizondo.
But see, Elizondo stepped down so he could go in and start investigating all of these different, he's like, look, he's like, we need to look at this. So, he really, he stepped up, and, it took him stepping down and stepping away to be able to have that, I'm going to go do investigating on this.
Did you talk to him? Did he call you? Did he say, I believe what you saw is legitimate? Like, did you guys have a whole lot of interaction around this?
He's the one that asked the questions on the interview.
Oh, yeah.
So him and I were actually talking.
So listeners need to go back and watch that episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll check out that episode.
Yeah.
So you, like I said, you do this interview that goes live. What happens after that, or what's going on in your head,
There was a lot of questions because, again, and by the time it aired, so I think it was like July of 2019 is when it aired, or September 2019, whatever it was, is when it aired. And at that point, I'm sitting there, I'm already like 2 years into a year to 2 years into the research, right? So now I'm not as troubled. And the moment it aired, the amount of people that start coming up to me saying I've seen this, I've seen this, I've seen, you know what I mean? So it was interesting because on the episode, they open up, my first case and stuff like that. And then halfway through, they kind of brought back, I think there was a British historian that's like, well, some of these guys, it might be attributed to the fog war. And you got, the assistant secretary saying, no, I don't think so, because these guys are in a combat zone. They're on heightened alert status. They might catch things that they normally would not have. You know what I mean? Because it's the only way you stay alive.
Yeah.
So, and then at the very end of the episode, they actually brought back a statement, that I had made in the beginning, and they closed basically the episode out with, I'm like, the conversation's open. It's not going away.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and so now that the conversation's coming out, you've got people like me, I don't believe in these things. And now all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, hold on though. What are we talking about? What are we calling what? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So now it's how are we going to get prepared? And you've got, on one side, you'll have government, let's say disclosure, we're trying to prepare people or whatever. I saw something on, you know, we might have to prepare pastors coming out, you know.
But you're talking about getting prepared. What ultimately do you think people need to prepare for?
Well, let's go back to 1960. Let's look at the Brookings Report. The Brookings Report was a whole lot of investigating going on, you know, about a bunch of sightings, stuff like that. And basically it was, hey, we need to wrap this up, shut it up, and classify it for now until we can really kind of take a look at it and maybe do a soft disclosure. You know, how would you start psychologically prepping people if for the first, let's say 30 years, you're trying to say, hey man, yeah, nope, there's nothing that exists, you know, all this other stuff. How would you start psychologically preparing people? All right, well, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you got Outer Limits, Twilight Zone,
the X-Files.
You know, well, that comes, you know, 30 years, 40 years later, but, you know, you're looking at the late 50s. You know, you got Rod Serling coming out in 1957 or 58 with Twilight Zone. You've got the Outer Limits. You've got all these out of nowhere. It's like, boom, there's a whole lot of conversation going on about this. But then you start getting into the sci-fi of, hey, Star Wars and Star Trek and the next frontier, you know. Why all of a sudden are we having this huge conversation about, you know, during the space race of the 50s and 60s and stuff like that? And it was just interesting because it's like, all right, so people are being drip fed the concept we might not be alone, or being drip fed the preparation for, let's say, disclosure. But when I do my reading now and I compare it to today, you are on a perfect checklist. We are right on schedule. And one of the things, you know, I'm sure someone's probably out there watching right now like, oh my goodness, he's going to talk about the Bible, all this other stuff. No, as a matter of fact, there was one verse that absolutely punched my brain that, you know, and do you want to say something before we?
Well, so you do the History Channel thing, right? You've got all these. Were they aware that you had locked yourself away essentially and done a ton of research? Did they ask you about your research? Did you share with them about your research? Like, was there anything?
Some of what I gave you, I sent to them to have an individual take a look at it.
So they did that before the episode?
After.
Did they want to bring you back for more conversation?
No. Or was it before or after? I don't even remember now. It's been 6-7 years. But I was one of the staff members called to say the individual was shown, and all they could say was, wow. It was before. Because it made me wonder at the end of that episode, the individual, you know, Lou had been like, you know, it doesn't matter if someone's seen something, you know, it was like 2 years ago, 2 decades ago, 200 years ago, or 2,000 years ago in Rome. And when he said that, I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, he read a lot of the research that I have. Okay. Why would you say that about modern day, you know? So I'm like, all right, well, maybe he got it. Cool, you know, and but maybe I was just reading into it too much. But yeah, I just, you know, but when I look at the verse that absolutely threw me for an absolute loop, and this is one of the statements I made when I started doing all my research, obviously, was probably maybe a little controversial. Without supernatural sightings, not a single world religion would exist. Where would anyone get the concept to pray to something not from here? And when you look at all the ancient cultures, when you look at, you know, the Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Mayans, the Aztecs, all this other, why are they always saying, well, their specific gods come from different constellations? You know, my brain is like, I got to reconcile, obviously, this with faith first, though, you know, first and foremost. And so if you've ever watched the movie The Matrix, like I'm going to tell you right now, this got to be one of the coolest book on the planet, 100% hands down. If you would actually want to prep yourself, let's say for departure, and hey, we're going to start checking out, space exploration and stuff like that. What would you want? You'd want almost like a life manual, right? What would you call it? Basic instructions before leaving Earth, BIBLE. You're going to have your history. Hey, where do we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? Blah, blah, blah. We're curious beings. We want to know. Okay. So at that point, I'm sitting here looking at all these ancient cultures, and then there is one verse in Acts chapter 7, verse 42 says, but God turned away and gave them over to worship the host of heaven. Wait, what? I actually had to put the Bible down and walk away because that just flooded 2017, the dream all over. That flooded 2009. That flooded everything. And I go back and I look and I'm like, but God turned away and gave them over to worship the host of heaven. Who is this host of heaven? You know what I mean? And at that point, it was like, all right, the more I read the Bible, obviously, it was like, and with each read through, it's almost like a new dimension starts it because now you're starting to see more, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm starting to wonder, like, this is, yeah. What is it? Psalm 89:6, who among the heavenly beings is like the Lord? We're talking about heavenly beings, obviously. We're talking these aren't earthlings, so I don't know.
So are you saying that like extraterrestrial, like space aliens, right? Whatever, that it's not extraterrestrial?
Well, what is the term, if you think about this, what does the term alien mean? Let's look at the Latin and the Greek, I think it is. I think in one of the languages, alien actually just means foreigner belonging somewhere else. And then in the other language, it means not from here. So when you look at the Latin and the Greek, they use the term alien. It's just, we even still use that term today, politically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hey, you're not from here. You broke in. So, but the thing is, what does it really mean? It's just, again, not from here, belonging somewhere else. So now, I guess that would be the big question is, if it's not from here. Well, think about this. In 1 Corinthians 15:40, the glory of the earthly is of one kind, the glory of the heavenly is of another. Well, I'm sitting here thinking, all right, if man is made from the dust of the earth, and then the hypothesis, right, but if man is made from the dust of the earth, we're called earthlings, whatever. So when we land on the moon, we didn't say, well, Earth crashed into the moon, do we? No. But a being from Earth, Neil Armstrong, stepped on the moon, right? So now let's say, take a look in like Revelation, and then I saw a star falling from heaven, and he was given a key to the bottomless pit. There's not a planetary collision. When you go throughout the Bible, you find the angels have many, 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 many names. Messenger of the Lord, messenger, angel, stars, the host of heaven. So there's so many different names. And if they even use the term, alien back then, meaning not from here, belonging somewhere else, we're still using it today, but we're using it in we're trying to relabel something. You know what I mean? So I'm sitting here thinking, well, that Acts 7:42, God turned away and gave him over. He's talking about all those ancient cultures to worship the host of heaven. So when these people say they saw something coming down, literally to the point that they're worshiping them as gods because they want to ascend to the stars too, they're not making it up. They're actually down to the point of chiseling statues to look, hey, this is what we saw. This is all these other things, right? Isn't that it's interesting if we were to be given a warning, how would you do that warning in the Bible?
Set people up for what to expect in the final days.
Well, you would prepare people. Not everyone's going to see them, right? So you would prepare people let's go to the 10 Commandments. This got really strange. Like, you look at all the different commandments, don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, don't kill, be, honor your father and mother. All right. You're looking at very simple, direct commandments. The very first two are the most important. All right. Have no other gods before me. All right. Because he is the creator and he is the one that created them. Okay. But for some reason, the second commandment seems to be almost the only commandment that needs unpacking for some reason. It says, don't make any graven image, but then it says, wait a minute, we're gonna have a conversation. Of anything that is in heaven above, today we would use the term extraterrestrial. Anything that is in the earth below, today we would use the term subterranean, or in the waters beneath. Today we would use submersible. What conversations are we having right now?
UAP.
What did the Greeks talk about? Poseidon coming out of the ocean. Olympus. Stuff like that. So when you go to Ecclesiastes, what is it? Ecclesiastes 3:11, I think it is that which is already has been, that which is to come already is. There is nothing new under the sun, or there is no remembrance of former things. Notice how we are not experiencing anything new. We just lost the translation.
Did you see any of the reporting on essentially the spires that they found under the pyramids in Egypt?
Yeah, so...
does that surprise you at all, given what the conclusions
and I
that you've come
think there
to?
would have to be more...
You'd actually dig those things up before you get your eyes on it.
I mean, they think they have, right? They've used sonar to go under the ground.
They're using ground-penetrating radar, and I think the acoustic return to try to identify.
That's
not
what it
sonar,
is.
But you
yeah.
don't physically we dug.
But they think that maybe these are historical chambers where knowledge...
Possibly, yeah.
Well, and when you look at, again, there's so much... Why did all the religions seem to come post-flood?
Well, you just took the thought out of my brain. Yeah. So we have the Great Flood and everything resets, right?
Yep.
Effectively, except
evidence
for
of that scientifically is coming about now.
They're finding fossils on mountain peaks. They're finding all of these different things.
The saltwater table, like at the Sphinx, or a lot of stuff. There's
there's no water damage.
Yeah,
if you ever drive through the Southern California and you go through like the Alpine, it's just a spot in Southern California, and you go through the mountains and you start going toward El Centro. The mountain range looks like it used to be at the bottom of what would have been an ocean.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, and the way some of those rocks are set to balance, you just look at them and you go, how did God do that?
Well, and think about this, too. Sedimentary layers.
It screams flood.
100%.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things I love about that is you can have, and you're going to have, of course, there's always going to be two sides to this conversation. You're going to have the creationist theory, of course. You're going to have the atheist theory. You know what I mean? Well, one says, we're people of science. Yes, so are we. All right. We're both searching for the same thing. We understand why. But one of the things that I notice, if you look at the sedimentary layers, especially in rock layers, and oh man, you get one side saying, well, this is billions and millions of years here and millions here. And when you add it all up, it's like, 2 billion years and all this other stuff, right? And then, but just right around the corner through all those layers, there's a vertical petrified tree going through all the layers. Well, that tree is not billions of years old. That was one tree from one time. What is it doing standing vertically between petrified layers? You know what I mean? So then all of a sudden you got to step back and be like, all right, well, what dating methods are we using? Of course, they're going to try to use carbon-14, on anything organic, but anything on that, what does it have, like a half-life of 5,700 year cycle? Every 5,700 years, carbon-14 is degraded by 50%. So you wouldn't be able to date anything past 100,000 years because there would be no carbon present. But again, another example is like ice core samples. When, what do they call it? Is it Glacier Girl? I think they were doing ice core samples up in the Arctic or whatever. And they're like, oh man, you look at the different layers in the ice core samples, and here we've got 2 million years worth of data and all this other stuff, and all of a sudden they get down to 200 feet, and they find a World War II plane. Huh? How does that happen? So then they have the arduous task of, hey, we got to try to get this plane up from underneath this ice. So I think it's called Glacier Girl. It's really cool. Look it up.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's check that out.
Yep.
Well, because like I say, we're seeing more and more of that. Like Graham Hancock's the OG one, or I shouldn't say OG, but he's the popular one right now going around. He had a Netflix series too with that theory, like some basically a catastrophic event at 10,000 years or so has happened, reset humanity, all these things, like just the evidence in archaeology, like around the world, and even more, just like other people are dating buildings and stuff. They're like, this is older than this. Like we're seeing like drill marks that shouldn't have drill marks in an area that doesn't have drill marks. So there's something going on, even I wouldn't say beyond UAP, but just our understanding of our own history. And they're saying that basically it at one point it got erased. We got to a certain point. It'd be like, and by the way, it's very believable. You have an asteroid hit us right now. It resets us. This cool little podcast, us putting us up on YouTube. It goes away. It all goes away.
Right.
I mean, you just think about the knowledge of do you know how to make a computer? If we survive in space, the three of us, are we rebuilding a computer?
Right.
No. So computer technology fades into memory. And they've talked about that too with other skills. It fades into memory, because you just don't know how to do it. It's not saying that we weren't capable. We just don't know how to do it anymore. Like, I don't know how to do certain things, Do you know how to put a car engine back together? No, but there's a mechanic down the road that does. Well, he goes, good luck, like that's, you know what I'm saying? And so a catastrophic event would absolutely wipe out human knowledge and history. And
well, you talk about a catastrophic event. Didn't 2016, they just identify that there was a massive airburst over the Dead Sea region?
I think so.
And when they started looking at everything, it would be almost they dated it within, I think, 100 to 200 years of the biblical account of Sodom and Gomorrah. All right.
Yeah, well, they talk
where you
about
would
like
have fire and sulfur raining down from the sky. So if there's a massive asteroid that burst over that region, let's say on a smaller scale, but then you got to look at like the global flood. Charles Hapgood wrote a book back in 58 that talked about Earth crust displacement or whatever. And for tectonic plates to shift rapidly would take a global cataclysmic event. When you get into the Genesis 8 account, all right, look at 300 years after the flood. It says the earth divided. I was like, wait, what? So now I'm sitting here looking at like, okay, are we talking about Pangea or are we talking about, stuff like that? But what would happen, and then now our scientists are saying there's more water under the Earth's crust than there is in the oceans combined. Well, that would verify in Genesis when it says it rained 40 days and 40 nights, ain't enough rain to, the ground broke forth and the waters came up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I should say.
So it sounds like in your research, which it's extensive. I mean, people can't necessarily see all the papers laying out here, but you've got your research. You've taken biblical accounts and you have directly linked them to historical events.
I overlaid them. Basically, remember being in school when you get the projector day? It's like, hey, they got the clear sheet and they'd draw on it and it projects onto the wall. Imagine if you were to take ancient events, today's events on those clear sheets and you combine them and put them on an overlay and set it down. You know what I mean? We're just reliving the past with newer technology.
But you did this in your research. You did the overlay, you used the overhead projector theory.
And there was a whole bunch of stuff that I was doing to the point that now it was like, if you were to watch the news today, if you've read the Bible, let's say more than once, twice, maybe even 3 times or 4, you know what I mean? If you ever watch the movie The Matrix, how you see the world now, you see everything is right on schedule. Everything is right as it's supposed to be. The chaos as it is unfolding, everything is literally, when you take the books of the prophets, and most people always think only the major prophets, they don't talk about the minor prophets. There's a lot of data there.
Yeah.
Like if you go into Amos or Obadiah, and some of the minor prophets, and if they climb into heaven, or in Obadiah, I think it was like 1:4 or something like that, and if they build their nests among the stars. Well, it talks about space travel all the way back then. How would they even write that down when those words won't exist for another 4,000, 3,000 years? How would they write that down? Or I saw a bird with steel wings, and stuff like, how would you say that I saw an F-18? You know what I mean? So when they're writing down with the language of their time and they're being shown the future, if you were to take all the major prophets and the minor prophets and you overlay, because there's going to be gaps from one, but it's going to be filled in by another. Gaps from another, but it's going to be filled in by the other one, right? And you overlay all the prophecies, you come on to a dead-on checklist. We're running right down the checklist. You know what I mean? And so now, when you look at that checklist, everything that needed to happen literally before the return of Christ, or what we would call the rapture and stuff like that, is everything has now been kicked into overdrive, I think, honestly, with 1947 and 1948. Okay? Because when you look at Matthew 24 and everyone's always like, well, what's the end going to look like? And, stuff like that. All right, well, the end's not yet. So, but when it says, start looking for these things, there's going to be wars, famines, pestilence, disease, all this other stuff. Evil will be called good, good will be called evil, all this other stuff, right? Every single century for the last 2,000 years has thought that they were living in the end days.
Yeah.
Literally, even in the first century.
Famine, everything. Yeah, that's going to go back.
There's always been war. There's always been famine. There's always been disease.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. People forgot about the major prophets and the minor prophets and what needed to happen. All right. So when you look at prophecy, all right, in the end, when I bring my people home, all right, well, you got Israel's been scattered for thousands of years, last couple thousand years, and out of nowhere, 1948, that was almost like the click on the countdown, the stopwatch. Immediately, the moment they became a nation, now the clock is ticking. Daniel 12:4, seal the book until the time of the end, and knowledge shall increase. Well, in 1995, the internet goes global. We're all getting our gateway computers and, stuff like that.
Gateway.
Yeah, right. So, but at the same time, all of a sudden, in 40, I think it was 47 when the Dead Sea Scrolls were unearthed. You know what I mean? Untouched for 2,000 years. Well, anyone that has ever now had the argument of, well, I could never trust the Bible because it's been edited by so many people through so many different languages and so many cultures that we don't even know what the true words are anymore. The finding of those scrolls literally just blew that right out of the water. How so? We are the only two, I think really the only difference is punctuation, vowel usage, because we got more in our alphabet. Okay, but one of the other things is chapter verse delineation didn't even happen until I believe like the 13th or 15th century. Before it was one solid letter. Imagine trying to go back and find something that, hey, I want to show you this verse real quick. You got to go through the whole letter. All right, well, I'm going to have to read 79 pages to find the one phrase that I was trying to find. So when they added that chapter verse delineation, for us now, we can start cross-referencing. And it's actually interesting because there was a German, was it a German professor or whatever, that they ran the calculations. It was him and someone else at one of the universities in Germany. They ran a calculation on the Old and New Testament and found that the Bible cross-references itself. All right, so mind you, you've got 40 different authors, okay, that wrote combined 66 books spanning 1,500 years. Many of these people have never met each other. I don't know, you know what I mean? Okay. And somehow it is, I think, the only book on the planet, they ran the numbers and found it cross-references itself 63,779 times. How is that mathematically even possible? With people that haven't even lived in the same, not just century together. Some of these people didn't even live in the same millennia. You know what I mean? And yet somehow there is that single thread that connects every single one of them. So people are sitting there, you go back out through history and everyone, all right, what is religion? I think Colossians 2:20 is like, yeah, religion's man-made, or whatever. They're saying that basically it's man's attempt at trying to work his way to be good enough to God, to go to heaven, right? Whereas this is really interesting. When you look at God as the creator created everything, then at that point there's only going to be one God. All right. Basically on the fourth day when he makes the stars, he'll make the angels, okay,
The messengers.
and the messengers and stuff like that. So it's interesting because I heard someone say, well, there was a creation before creation of the heavenly host and all this other stuff, and actually no, believe it or not, if you know how to navigate and look at what the Bible says, we find that's not really the case. What do we find in Ezekiel 27 and 28 about the king of Tyre? You were a guardian cherub. You were in the Garden of Eden. You were anointed before wickedness was found in you and you sinned. Okay. So at that point, and it says, and the other thing that I wanted to bring up on that was on the day you were created. So we know that it was a created angel on a specific day. Well, you have to go into the creation days to understand exactly what's going on here. Day number 1, in the beginning, God creates the heavens and the earth. He only creates the locations of where he is going to place his future creation. Okay? So the sun, moon, and stars aren't even created until the 4th day. All right? And when the angels are referenced as stars, oftentimes, okay, and he knows each and every one of them by name, all right, you're looking, it's interesting because it's almost like, what was it, day 2, he makes the firmament, day 3, vegetation. Interesting on day 3, why does he start vegetation and everything else like that, plants, trees, stuff like that? He's going to let the earth terraform for a couple days, create oxygen, so the land animals, and when he makes Adam and Eve on day 6, they'll be able to breathe. All right. So, because vegetation produces oxygen. So it was absolutely interesting how all this was working. But when I'm looking at the creation, and sorry, train of thought literally just derailed. No. What was the question again?
You were talking about how the creation kind of story validates itself. Adam and Eve, we were created, we were already there. We had sinned, got ourselves in trouble through sin. God had created the different space, right? The different areas in which he was going to do things, and that he put the planets on there. So we were just talking.
Yeah, I mean, and
or he put the planets, and then he put the vegetation and the animals.
Yeah, so and there's actually something really interesting too, because there's a love story in itself. On that fourth creation day, when he makes the sun, moon, and stars, right? He already puts everything. What does it say? To be for signs and seasons. The constellations have never changed. You go all the way back into Job chapter 38. He says, "Who is he who, it is I or he, who it is that binds the chain of the Pleiades, looses the cords of Orion." We're talking about two huge, star systems that we know about.
And before your experience on the deployment, when you saw what you saw, you had no biblical knowledge the way you do today.
Not the way I do now.
You could never just start rattling.
I was here one day. I'd go to a church. When I did go, I did my 1 hour a week. So hey, don't ask any more of me.
Christmas, Easter type.
Pretty much. Yeah. So it was.
So this experience. At first,
he says, "I have so much more to show you."
It felt like a conflict for you at first, but now it is actually a perfect puzzle being put together.
Not just a puzzle, but a joy, a hope. You know what I mean? All this other stuff. Because at that point, when you realize that this life is literally the preparation room for the long haul. You know what I mean? Are we preparing? Why does it say when you start to see these signs. Prime example, Amos 9:2, we were talking about, hey, let's check off some of those prophecies, right? Well, one, in the end, I'll bring my people home. Israel becomes a nation. Seal the book until the time of the end. Dead Sea Scrolls are unearthed. If they climb up into heavens, or when they climb into the heavens, build their nests among the stars, we now have space stations. As a matter of fact, think about the first heaven, the firmament, which is for the birds, the oxygen where the birds can flap off the wind of the air, right? 1901, we got the Wright brothers. 1961, so we're in the first heaven. 1961, Yuri Gagarin, first man credited to be in space. We're now in the second heaven. This gets interesting. And this blew me for a loop. 2 Corinthians, what is it? Is it 1 Corinthians 15:40, 2 Corinthians?
So you're saying that, for the most part, we have just viewed heaven as just one place, one place to arrive to, right?
No, exactly.
But you're actually saying that we've got multiple different layers of heaven that are being described throughout biblical context.
The one that threw me off was the one in Corinthians, all right? Because out of nowhere in that one, 2 Corinthians 12:2, I know a man in Christ who just 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven. I'm like, whoa, hold up. Been going to Sunday school since 1984. What are you talking about, this third heaven stuff? I thought there's just heaven. Huh? And then all of a sudden you go to Revelation 21:1. It's like, well, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth are destroyed. Huh? So now we're talking about a first heaven, a third heaven. Where's the second heaven? And I'm starting to do my research into this. And we find out, obviously, when you go back to Genesis 1, you compare it to Revelation, when you compare it to all these other ones, you find the first heaven would be within our lower atmosphere, where the birds can push off and stuff like that. The oxygen cutoff, I think, is around 25,000 feet. But birds in their bones hold air sacs. And so if they do get caught up, let's say in an updraft, they've been seen anywhere from 45,000 to 60,000 feet in an updraft. The air in their bones gives them basically a reserve until they can get back down out of that updraft into where they are. So what are clouds? Well, you've got the waters above. Think about this, and I nerd out on science like this, right? How much does a cloud weigh?
No idea.
Never had that thought in my
Never. Yeah, they have. Well, I probably might have thought,
you
but
probably have.
Yeah.
You're looking at about 10 to 100 quadrillion tons.
Jeez. Really?
So why aren't we being crushed? Well, the molecules haven't bound together yet. But the moment, so we got, let's say 100 quadrillion tons hanging above your head, but all of a sudden that cloud comes together and what happens? Bang, you got flooding. Buildings are getting knocked over. Cars are being pushed down the... It's the same water. You got the waters above, where the birds can fly in the firmament, and the waters beneath. So you got sea level. Clouds don't float off into space.
True.
They have a barrier where they kind of, there's no more molecule or air for them to bind together. So they're, so at that point, I'm sitting here looking, all right, so the first heaven is our atmosphere. The second heaven would be the literally expanding universe. And then all of a sudden, when I was seeing that back in 2017, about the third heaven, I'm like, wait a minute. This is where, what was it, John or Paul, who went to that third heaven. The fallen angels were cast out of the third heaven, but they still have access to the first and second. Ephesians 6:12. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. So right now, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, when you get to Revelation, and then I saw a star falling from heaven, he was given a key to the bottomless pit. His tail swept down a third of the stars. Everyone assumes that third were already cast down. I think the final purge of the first and second heavens is an event that is coming. That's why it's in Revelation about a future event. And if you go to Isaiah 24:21, it talks about on that day, the Lord will punish the host of heaven in heaven. You know what I mean? So there's two separate, you got the ones, because when you look at, the Lord, some of those angels he doesn't trust. Angels make mistakes. What is that, Job 4:18? Even in his servants he puts no trust, and in his angels he charges with error. Jude 1:6, the angels who did not stay within their authority but left their proper dwelling place, he kept in chains in darkness.
Yeah.
Remember we were talking about that heavenly prison almost? Like when you bind or chain something, you know, he who binds the chains of the Pleiades looses the cords of Orion. It's like, wait a minute, is there a heavenly prison? The one in hell is for the ones that, all right, so these are the ones that probably created the Nephilim. You guys are done. You're eternally done. You know, so, but mankind is curious. We're doing research. We want to know. We want to, you know, angels are curious too, I would assume. They're also created beings. Why wouldn't they? You know, and that actually goes to even make me wonder about, think about these verses. If man was made a little lower than the angels, but then we come to another verse that says, but man was given dominion over the earth. You think that might cause a little contention with someone? Wait a minute, you're making these things below us, but you're giving them dominion over the earth? When you look at the creation days, you're going to see the first 6 and 7 days. At the end of each day, it was good, it was good, it was good, it was good. Seventh day, it was good, and God blessed it. Okay? So at that point, we don't see any evil yet. If the angels are made on the 4th day of creation, mankind is made on the 6th day of creation, we're resting on the 7th, having a beautiful barbecue, you know what I mean? Sun shining, great weather. When did Lucifer's fall begin? I'm thinking on or after the 8th day. There might be symbolism to this, because what is the ancient custom on circumcision? The cutting away is on the 8th day. They were removed from the garden, but yet the 7th day God blessed and made holy. First 6 days were perfect. It's got to be on the 8th day or after.
Something went wrong in the 24-hour window period is what you're talking about.
Basically, and it went from him, or, you know, from Lucifer, all of a sudden, hold up, there must have been some pride, there must have been some, you know, resentment or whatever. So he's, you know what? He's going to go to Eve first, you know, and he's going to try to get her, because he didn't go to Adam. Yet Adam's the one that gets basically held accountable for it, because God told him, right? You know, and then of course, when everything starts raveling apart, the whole blame game begins. Well, you made the serpent beautiful and all this other stuff, and I just hide. And then all of a sudden you got the man, well, you're the one that made her for me, so technically you gave it to me because of her. And the blame game starts.
Yes.
This is, I think, the message of the cross. And why we're seeing all of this right now is, remember when I said this life is a preparation room? When you hear the pilot say, prepare for departure, okay, I think the Antichrist is going to try to pass off the rapture as an alien abduction. Because what does it say when you go into Thessalonians, you know, Paul's letter to the Thessalonians and stuff like this was, you know, he will send out his angels to gather his elect. Okay? When you look at Revelation 3:10, to keep them from the hour of trial, to try all of those who dwell on earth. Meaning, all right, well then clearly there's going to be a people that will not be on the planet. Everyone on earth will be tried. Okay? So when it says he's going to send out his angels to gather his elect, okay, that is really interesting, because there was something I found. Apparently Jesus doesn't touch down on earth on that time. So we know it's not the second coming. But ready for this? And I found this to be really interesting. There's the first coming and then the first appearing. The first coming is when Jesus lived on earth, literally.
Did not make himself known. He was just...
And he's telling everyone, don't tell anyone. I don't need that kind of publicity right now, right? So it's interesting. There is only one God that creates everything. And then, of course, he creates, you know, all the other gods that are called the sons of God is another name. And like Genesis 6, the sons of God saw the daughters of men were, you know what I mean? So the angels, lowercase g plural, you're going to have gods, which many cultures are worshiping all these different gods. Okay. But there's only one creator. There's only going to be one Christ.
If the other cultures are worshiping all the other gods, does that then displease capital G? Or is he like, well, I created them. They're ultimately mine. They're kind of worshiping me.
Well, this is why he wanted to separate, when he made the covenant with Abraham through Isaac and all this other stuff. All right. When you, and especially when you go to Moses, who was that covenant for with those 10 commandments? There was going to be a specific people set apart.
It was the Jewish people, correct?
Correct. Right. He made his covenant with Israel, formerly known as Jacob, a.k.a. gets rebranded Jacob after the wrestling match with the angel of the Lord. We're talking about pre-incarnate Jesus, or, gets in a wrestling match, finally got in human form. What does Matthew 1:23 mean? Emmanuel means God with us. I know there's people going to be like, wait, hold on. Let's take a look at that Trinity. All right, we talked about that, I think, earlier. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the Son, numerous times. So that whole wrestling with Jacob touches his hip, dislocates. From now on, your name is going to be called Israel. You know what I mean? And now when you look at those commandments, it was to set them apart from everyone else. Mind you, that is under the old covenant. Now we're under that new covenant. But look at one creator, one God, one Christ, 353 prophecies of Jesus. The number one thing that I love the most would be Zechariah chapter 12, verse 10, where he makes a statement, and he's talking to the prophet Zechariah, and when they look on me, so this is God talking to him, when they look on me, but there's a shift, on him whom they will pierce.
Christ.
He announces that he's going to take on a human form and let mankind think they can kill him. He's got something to show them. Death don't stop.
Resurrection.
Yeah. 100%. So now all of a sudden, when that happens, now.
I just had goosebumps. That's wild.
Right. So it's like now all of a sudden the gift is opened up to all of us. It's that whole. When you find out, like, hell wasn't made for mankind. Okay, when you go into Matthew, Jesus is talking about it, and hell was prepared for the devil and his angels, was not made for man. Okay. Funny that we use the term influencer nowadays. Who was the ultimate influencer in the beginning? Let's go back into the Garden of Eden. Did God really say? And then he tempts her with a little, you could be, all right, just cast out. So you got the ultimate influencer, wants to distract us just long enough to avoid the cross. All right, so he is going to influence us. We'll never be good enough. We'll never, measure up. We'll never, all this other, the lies. These are the fiery darts that the enemy will fire at us, right?
Self-doubt, self-pity.
Yes.
Being concerned with physical looks, right?
All the vanity, money.
Yeah.
Right. You see some of the richest people on the planet are poor.
They're terrible. Well,
But
they're miserable.
Yeah, miserable.
No, some of the richest people, like monetary wise, absolutely miserable. They got everything they want, right? And some of the poorest people on the planet are the richest because of the spirit they got. They're like, man, this life is a grain of sand on the Sahara by comparison. You know what I mean? Yep. They've already had that. So again, what was that? That message of the cross was, you know what? You were all born with that sin nature. There is no way you can fight that. You know what I mean? Did anyone teach their infant how to lie? Did you take that cookie? No. No one taught that infant to lie. All right. We were born with that sin nature. So basically, that God's breath of life, AKA the soul, all right, that's in us, that part right now is tainted. Why does it say you must be born again? What does that mean? Even the people of Jesus' time are like, what am I supposed to go back to mom's womb and try this all over again?
Be born into the understanding is essentially what it is.
Right. Yeah. And when you look at that, what does the word repentance mean? My goodness. Talk about a skin crawler sometimes. I don't believe it means what people think it means. Everyone runs around on the basis of repent, because there's a verse that says repent and turn from your wicked ways. But there's also another verse that says repent and be baptized. There is a change of mind. There is an act. They're two separate things, is how I'm seeing it. The repentance part is a holy realignment in your thinking. I agree that this is wrong. Paul even says, I hate doing it. I'm doing the very thing I hate. Do you ever read Romans 6 and 7 and 8? Oh, wow. There's a story. If you ever feel like you're just a constant screw up and I'll never get it right, I might as well give up. Paul's under attack there. He goes, I'm doing the very things I hate. I'm not doing what I want to do. Who will save me from this wretched body? Thanks be to our Lord Jesus Christ. So with my mind, I serve the law of Christ. With my body, the law of sin, right? When you go into Corinthians, he even asked, God, please take away this demon from me. What did God say? My grace is sufficient. Would you stop worrying? You keep trying to put it on yourself. I put it all on me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting when you look at, what year are we in right now?
2026.
Mm-hmm.
It's been 2026 years since what?
Well, we put on the birth of Christ, BC.
So you've got BC, before Christ, Anno Domini, meaning the year of our Lord.
Yes.
Yep.
Maybe.
So, and that's his birth. You're dead on correct. Mm-hmm. When you go back through the Old Testament, it's really cool. You find, oh man, 1,000 years is a day to God, and 1,000 years, 1,000 years to man is like one day to God, whatever. You know what I mean? It's just saying that time is irrelevant, because if he made space, time, which is interesting, in the beginning, there's time. You're now going to have a 1 second past, present, future. In the beginning, so you got his time. I think Dr. Hovind had Ken Hovind had talked about that or whatever. I don't know. But then you got space, has length, width, height, the heavens, okay, and then the earth, and now all of a sudden you got matter, solid, liquid, gas. You got a trinity of trinities that he created. If he created it, he's outside it. He's not bound by it. You know what I mean? So where was I going with this? He made all these things. Oh, train of thought just derailed again. There's so much going on.
No, like I said, it's awesome to hear this. So
2026 years, there it is.
Yep.
Okay.
time.
So since time is irrelevant to him, he says 1,000 years, one day is 1,000 years. Look at the creation days. There was 6 creation days. If you were to absolutely start a clock, all right, when we take all the lineages that the Bible gives us, we backdate it all the way to 4,000, 4004 BC, right? That's 4,000 years, okay? So you could almost count day one, each 1,000 years, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4.
It's not a day in the way that we think of a day today.
Right. Well, right. So you've got, but now all of a sudden you got day 5, and it would be coming to the end of day 6,000 years. We are now 7 years away from a 2,000 year anniversary date. What happens in 2033? Anniversary of the resurrection. 2,000 year anniversary of the resurrection. We're now 7 years away. We're seeing all these things happening in rapid succession, clicking up. Everything is going unhinged right now.
What do you think happens on the anniversary?
And at that point, that's where I say, if everything is already, everything that's needed to happen for the rapture to take place has now happened, we're just waiting.
So do you think, have you come to the conclusion that the disclosures that are happening in Congress with is it Rep. Paulina Luna from Florida, right? And now you've got all these UAP disclosures. The White House just said, hey, if you have signed an NDA and we've held you to that NDA because we don't want you to provide classified information, the White House just released those NDAs. So you could hypothetically go talk about classified information now and you will not be legally held responsible. They just signed off on that. Do you believe then that we're now in that 7-year buildup, that when we have lawmakers talking about interdimensional beings and how they're all from here, just different dimensions? I mean,
Well,
how do you how do you?
Because I was going to ask that same question. Like, so now we're kind of going back to what do you think?
Because they're saying we were in a classified briefing.
Yeah.
They're telling us it's interdimensional.
My question
Where is your conclusion?
My question is, did the Bible talk about stargates, wormholes, portals?
I think you think it did. Yes, it's in your writing somewhere.
You're cheating. You see us. You're looking at us. Looking over our shoulders.
Yeah, hold on, because I'm
Cheating on the homework.
I'm in my 40s now, so you're gonna have to bear with me because I actually got a pair of cheaters. Yeah, when I did this was very small. But at any rate,
There's a show called Stargate SG-1, right?
oh, I remember that.
Oh yeah. It was a great movie.
That would be a preparatory show, correct? To get us ready for.
You know, there's one 2 Samuel 22:10. He bowed the heavens and came down. Okay, or this is interesting. 1 Enoch 14:8. I saw clouds that invited me in, summoned me into a mist, and the course of the stars and the flashes of lightning hurried and drove me. In verse 9 it says, the winds in the vision caused me to fly and lifted me up and bore me into heaven. He's talking about course of stars. There'd be constellations whizzing past him. What?
Sounds like a Stargate.
Almost, right? But hold up. Then you go, Genesis 28:17, and he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. Temporary entrance point on earth. All of a sudden, you've got there's traveling to Damascus, Acts 9:3, a light from heaven flashed around him. You've got Psalm 68:33, to him who rides through the heavens, the ancient heavens. I mean, there's dimensional portals. So Isaiah 24:18, in the windows of heaven. You know, you can read a lot more of that in Isaiah 24:18. I was thinking about something. What about the transfiguration of Jesus? That was an interesting moment. And if you think about it, would we almost call that a convergence point of multiple dimensions? At the transfiguration of Jesus, when he goes up the mountain, all right, because again, everything works for him. He created it, good or bad. He's already seen the end. He's letting everything play out. All right. So he goes up the mountain, and out of nowhere, you know, what do the apostles say? Oh man, what was there? Moses and Elijah they saw standing there. Well, Moses died 1,500 years earlier.
How could he have been standing there?
Exactly. Elijah was raptured. Oh, you know what I mean? We got two people that haven't had their first death yet. Remember, it's appointed unto man once to die, and after that, the judgment. Two people haven't had those deaths yet. Enoch got caught up. Elijah got caught up. Who are the two witnesses? I'm curious. Not saying it's them, but who are the two witnesses that are going to be killed in the streets of Jerusalem in the future that leave their body in the streets for 3 days? Sounds like a couple people are going to have their first death. But the interesting part is, if they're now outside of space and time, they aren't aging. So when they show up, they're going to be the same age as when God took them. If you think about it, if they're outside of time, I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. Again, this is how I'm seeing everything. You know, not saying I'm a scientist, I'm not an astrophysicist, stuff like that. I'm reading scripture, comparing it, saying, all right, I'm seeing the connections, I'm seeing all these different things. Yeah.
I don't know how you view it, but would you say the biggest blessing of your life would be sitting in that tower on deployment? I mean, because it seems to me like that one moment in time,
I never even thought of that.
That one moment in time brought you to all of this work. And had you not been put in war, you would not have had that experience, which wouldn't have made you the enlightened man that you are today. So maybe the single most important thing to ever happen in your life was be sitting in that tower that night and looking at that jet that flew by. And again, that had to get set into motion, right?
That would have been the seed planter, and then the seed would lay dormant until 2017, when all of a sudden, all right, time to punch that.
You had to take the water in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It's pretty dope. Yeah.
That's what it looks like to me, brother.
That's awesome.
Wow, brother.
So I was thinking, though, I mean, we were, you know, the way you're talking about this, and it's interesting because I was telling Nate on the way down as right before we started recording, a lot of this is starting to come up. Like JD Vance was talking about UAPs or these sightings as demons. And also, I just happened to listen to another podcast, Winston Marshall, and I'll pull it up here. No, actually find them. I downloaded it. I listened it just happened, and they talk about, JD Vance just talked about this. Well, it was like a Catholic priest or a researcher.
Yep.
I don't know if you.
I didn't see the video. I saw the heading.
The heading, yeah. It's a Winston Marshall. I wish I could pull it up here. I'll see if I can find it real quick.
Well, and this is why we're told to test the spirits.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because when you look at Ezekiel 1, I think it's verse 20, we know that angels also have spirits. All right, think about this. Angels and humans have bodies, and we can be filled with spirits. Demons and spirits don't have bodies, so multiple spirits can enter one person.
Does that look like PTSD? Does that look like bipolar? Does that look like schizophrenia?
No, I don't think so. It's what you open your mind up to and to allow in. So prime example, if you were to look at, let's say, lust. Lust wasn't really lust in the Garden of Eden. God gave Adam the desire for Eve to jumpstart the human race. Mm-hmm. But when someone else comes along and tries to use it in an unholy manner outside of the covenant of marriage, what did it become? Lust. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and now all of a sudden, since everyone's guilty of pretty much anything and everything, and the Bible says if you're guilty of one, you're guilty of all of them. Mm-hmm. So this is why we needed someone to say, hey, you know what? I will take everything that you have and will do in life, put it on me. I will wrap you in mine. And now we have that blessed hope until we take possession of it when we cross over. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Unless we're alive at the rapture. Oh, that'd be sweet. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because immediately our body will be changed. We don't got to wait. Mm-hmm. So
episode I'm looking at here is Rod Dreher, and it's Are Aliens Demons? And he talks about that. They talk about conversation on UFOs, demons, exorcism, the occult, and the growing spiritual crisis in the modern West. And they were talking about it in the episode, because he said he's a researcher, much more in depth than the Catholic Church with exorcism and everything like that, in the diocese. Some of these visitations that people are having, they're thinking that it's demons posing as what we would consider aliens or something like that. And hence J.D. Vance, I think that's a little impetus of what J.D. Vance was slightly talking about with viewing these beings or these whatever as demonic.
The fact that we've got the vice president of the United States of America going out Rogan and saying it's demonic and divine. So it seems to fit with the conclusions that you have come to.
I would definitely.
That was going to be my next question: is what was in the ship that night?
So I would always caution, and I would caution anyone. Oh, tap the mic. Sorry, but I would always caution people not to just automatically jump to the conclusion they're demonic. The Bible warns us. All right, it already warned us in the second commandment. You're going to see things not from earth. You're going to see things coming out of the ocean. You're going to see things under the ground, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so just don't make images of them and worship them, right? Mm-hmm. We were already given that forewarning. When we look at, since we're given a warning, we are told to test the spirits. Now, right now, we know there's going to be a great deception coming. Obviously, a lot of things are unfolding. Everything is being put in place. All right, for revelation and to unfold and step on the stage. So, but right now, I guess my caution would be, if someone didn't test it, put it through God's lens first, and if let's say you did not test them, you weren't able to, let's say, have a conversation or stuff like that, whatever. All right, assuming that they're demonic or whatever, because prime example, here's one. Daniel 4:13, behold, the watcher, a holy one, came down from heaven. All right, Psalm 82:1, God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. This one right here, Zechariah 1:9 and 10, the angel who talked with me said, these are they whom the Lord sent to patrol the earth. Okay. I always wondered, and I got a question, I always wondered, how would the Antichrist, when he does finally step on stage, how would he get mankind to think that they could fight against God, join him to fight against God? Sounds kind of futile and dumb, doesn't it? How would you convince mankind to get mankind to fight against God. Convince mankind he's the evil one. So if we've got people saying, hey, you know what? We now have the technology to fight against these things. You know, you've all seen Independence Day and stuff like that. We're getting mentally prepped. You know what I mean? So
It's a psyop.
basically, if you don't have scriptural knowledge, if you don't have the clear lens of Scripture to be able to say, hey, hold up, I see what's going on here. Okay. Then I got a feeling that people would fall into that deception. Those that when they look at everything and say, all right, Jesus, you're ready to come back. All right. What does he say? When you see these things start taking place, look up, for your redemption is drawing near. That would almost coincide with he will send out his angels to gather his elect, those that put their trust in him. So now all of a sudden,
So do you think you've been gathered as the elect because you saw what you saw?
no. When I say the gathering of the elect, I'm talking we will be caught up to meet them in the air. We're talking about the rapture at this point. So really think about this, because I'm looking at, everyone says, oh, you know, well, the rapture is sudden disappearing of a lot of people, right?
It's Thanos snap.
Pretty much, exactly. Look at, what is that? This is interesting. There's a surprise in, was that Revelation 7? 6.
See how marked up that Bible.
I know, yeah. I see the notes. It's amazing.
Mind bending how much ink is in there.
So Revelation, it's Revelation 7, where they are literally, they're caught off guard. You go to Revelation 7, verse 13, then one of the elders addressed me saying, who are these clothed in white robes? Where have they come from? There's a sudden appearing in heaven of a whole lot of people, pretty much from every tongue, tribe, and nation, that literally surprised someone in heaven. This is a future event that we were told about. Someone in heaven was absolutely shocked. Where did all these people just come from? Meaning there's going to be somewhere else a whole lot of people just disappeared from. You were talking about that snap. Okay, so then it goes on. I said to him, sir, you know. And he said to me, these are the ones coming out of the great tribulation, having washed their robes. We're washed. What happens when we trust Jesus did it for us? I can't do it on my own. There's no way I can, right? We realize it has been him the entire time. All right. Then at that point, that renewing of the mind, realizing it was him. I think a lot of people, he has been, I had this conversation at a funeral, that for those that have not had, a way to see or understand, Jesus has been following right over their shoulder. You're just waiting for it to click, to have that aha moment, sending people along. You know what I mean? Not interested. Hey, you know what? Now I got time for it. And all of a sudden, bang, brain aneurysm. They're gone. Or, whatever. But again, hell wasn't prepared for us. It was for the devil and his angels. So why does Satan want to do everything to try to get us to avoid God at all cost? Because he hates us to the point that he doesn't want us with him. So it's like, prime example, it's like, you hear all these people, all religions lead to heaven and things of this nature. The intent is good. Everyone wants to work and be good enough. When the Creator takes on a form and says, no, gee, what did Jesus say? No one gets to the Father but by
Except
me.
through me.
Okay? Out of all those other gods, all right, the Creator himself took on a human form, lived in a body just like ours, perfectly killed, became the Passover lamb for us, so we're covered in Christ. If you think about the Passover, what was it? You know what? Take a blood of a spotless lamb, put it on the lintel of the doorpost of your house, right? When the angel would go by, saw the house, and all of a sudden, it's got blood covered, moving on. You didn't hear an angel say, hold on, let's stop and check to see what they're doing inside to see if they're still eligible. No, he passed over that house. They're covered. Okay, so at that point, when Christ's blood covers us, if we accept that, that's like handing a $100 bill. You can accept it or reject it. I'll leave it in your hands. You know what I mean? All right. It's on the person. You know, it's offered, but it's got to be at least accept it. You know what I mean? So because it's a free gift, you know, for by grace are you saved through faith, not of yourselves, not of works. You can't do anything. So right now, I think we're literally being prepped to get removed from the planet because we see that 7-year tribulation is about to really kick into high gear. You want to talk about hell on earth right now, I would honestly have to rip the Band-Aid off and say those without Christ, this life, you know, those without Christ, this life will be the only heaven they will ever know. And this life ain't that great. So, and those with Christ, this life will be the only hell we will ever know. You know what I mean? So at that point, it's like, all right, buckle up, trim that lamp, get ready. You know what I mean? So at this point, the technology is now in place. If you think about some of the prophecies, one of the things, the whole world will watch, okay, the 2 witnesses that get murdered in Jerusalem when the Antichrist steps on stage and rules. All right, it's like a 3.5 year, there's a good year, 3.5 bad year, right? But those two witnesses, when they're killed, the whole world will watch. Well, in 2008, first smartphone came out. Now you got Starlink going up. You can be anywhere on the planet and watch a news release. This technology is only 20 years old.
Yeah.
It's now in place. With NASA and satellites, the ability to cause incendiaries to drop into the atmosphere when the Antichrist calls down fire from heaven to replicate Elisha. Yeah, he's going to get everyone to become religious. Don't become religious. Don't. He's going to get everyone to become religious, to follow him. Okay, what does, you know, Jesus, Colossians 2:20, like I said, you see, you do these things, say don't taste, don't touch, and you add on all these things. He says they have the appearance of wisdom and religiosity, but they're of no use for indulging the flesh. You know what I mean? Christ paid it for us. There's 2 types of things right now. Thing between dead works and fruits of the Spirit. Doing the exact same thing for 2 different reasons, right? All right, I want to be better just because, you know what? I want to be better. I don't want to do this anymore. All right, that's fruit of the Spirit. Whereas I have to do it, otherwise God's going to kill me. No. All right, that's a dead work. How many people get put back into the handcuffs of religion once they've been set free? You know what I mean? So I think we were warned about that, but at any rate, I think the Antichrist is going to pass it off as an alien abduction. The conversation is out there. The technology is now in place. And one of the big things, obviously, is going to be the mark of, you know, what we see about in Revelation, the mark of the beast. All right, no one will be able to buy or sell unless they have that mark. We ran the test run during COVID. That test run got run through to iron out the kinks of, hey, what's going to happen next? All right, where's the pushback going to be? We're going to have to iron it out. Who's going to refuse it? They were trying to do the vaccine passport stuff, all this other stuff. Oh, if you don't take the shot, you're not going to be able to step in our store. All this other stuff, right? The dress rehearsal for the mark of the beast was put in place. We know it's going to be on the right hand, forehead, whatever. No one will be able to buy and sell without it. Anyone that takes that mark has now put their full trust in Satan without even realizing it. The beast system is not God's, but they're going to do it out of necessity. You look, and when Jesus warned, man, you guys are going to struggle on my behalf. Take heart, they hated me first, but I've overcome the world, Jesus said. I'll come back. I'm going to come and get you.
Well, I mean, I took the shot out of necessity.
I mean, right, and a lot of people did.
If I wanted to stay in the guard, that was I had to have it.
The nice thing is, and when you look at Revelation, you know, because everyone's like, oh man, was that the mark? Was that? No, it's not the mark. Okay, the Antichrist hasn't come on scene yet. All right, think about that when you really look into Revelation, right? All right. So the first beast and the second beast. The mark comes after the two witnesses. That hasn't been televised yet for the whole world to watch because everyone's going to celebrate their two deaths. Because during the tribulation, they're going to be executing judgments on the earth. God's wrath, right? Everyone is going to be happy when nothing can kill them, and then all of a sudden the beast kills them. It's going to be a party on planet Earth. Okay, after that, he is going to require everyone to take his mark. So now you're going to get a global one, basically a one world government almost, a one world financial system. Can't buy or sell without it. I'm like,
The NWO returns.
Well, think about it, actually. It was weird because I remember going to a clinic one time. They're like, oh, here, let me check your temperature real quick, and scan my forehead. Oh, I wanted to scan my wrist. I'm like, I read about this once. I'm like, hand and forehead.
Yeah.
We just got softened up to the idea. The technology is in place. You look at the way, like the Chinese social credit system.
Social credit system.
Right, 100%.
That's more
Are they
like
not-
what you think, yeah.
But they're implanting chips in, correct? And you can now just pay with
Well, they
your
say
card.
talk about that, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when you look at the social credit system right now, it's like, oh, you know what? And especially with this whole green energy, whatever it is, they're saying, you know what? Hey, you ate too much this week, or you drove too much this week, you expanded your carbon footprint, you get locked out of your account for a day or two to get you back within the carbon footprint that they determine, right? And it's like, well, I can see the writing on the wall.
So a little bit, I know.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I probably went way off topic.
No. I think it was great. We were kind of circling back a little bit because it's funny that we're all talking about this, and I listened to those episodes like in the last week. The UAP aspect of things.
Yes.
What is your opinion on that then, as we're going through all this stuff that you researched?
Some angels, if you go to the Old Testament, some angels require chariot. Look at the chariots of God, are twice 10,000. All right. So when I look at that, where is that? The chariots of God are twice 10,000. It's interesting because there's that's Psalm 68:17. Okay. Some, if you look at like angel and messenger, some require chariots, a mode of transportation as we would use the term today. Doesn't mean they came down to earth, whittled some, logs, made spoked wheels, built a chariot to go cruise, the heavens. No, it is a mode of transportation, right? So some require a mode of transportation, others do not. And maybe that would come down to the different levels of angelic hierarchies. Okay. Some, well, guess what? You're kind of restricted, so you need a vehicle. Others, you know what? You get to use portals. It's just right there. Portal opens up, you step through. A prime example, when Paul was in prison. And all of a sudden he's sitting down there in the darkness, and then suddenly, bang, it's bright white light. Suddenly an angel appeared. You know what I mean? So was the light from the angel, or was the light from behind him where he just came from? Shining through the portal? I don't know.
What did you see?
What do you mean?
Do you think you saw an angel? Or a chariot?
Again, and I don't know. That's one of those, at this point in time, now the conversation comes down to, are we just changing the name of, you know what? Hey, if we can try to get God out of the equation, we'll call them aliens. But are we talking about the same thing? Because in Joel chapter 2, verses 1 through 10, you want to talk about, oh my goodness. Joel chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. You've all seen a lot of the Avengers movies, right?
Yep.
Scene in New York. All right. What is that? The Tesseract that opens up that portal, right? And in comes through all these beings, right? They're coming down into New York City. What happens? They're climbing the walls of the skyscrapers, climbing into windows. All right. People are shooting at them. They can't be stopped, right? Tell me if this doesn't sound familiar to what I just said about that movie. Joel chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. And the day of the Lord is coming, a great and powerful people, their like has never been before, nor will be again after them through all generations. Verse 3, behind them a flame burns and nothing escapes them. Verse 7, like warriors they charge, like soldiers they scale the wall. Verse 8, they burst through the weapons and are not halted. Number 9, they leap upon the city, they run up the walls, climbing into houses through windows. Verse 10, the earth quakes before them, the heavens tremble. Compare that with Isaiah 13, 4 and 5. The Lord of hosts is mustering a host for battle. They come from a distant land, from the end of the heavens. There's going to be a one-time event. One-time event. They've never been seen before, and they're never going to be seen again after. Did that almost sound like that movie scene?
No, it does. Yeah.
So I'm sitting here thinking, all right, now we're getting used to the concept of 60, 70 years of being drip-fed, Hollywood, concepts. But the thing is, when you go back to the Bible, they all work for him.
Weird.
Even good or bad. They're going to serve his purpose. He saw the end. They're not. They couldn't.
So at the end of the day, let's say that we have this Hollywood moment, right? And there's a spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, what was that movie? It's an older movie where we essentially make first contact. It was like in the 70s.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah.
So we have this moment, right? And we're trying to communicate with them, right?
Yeah.
And Justin's standing there. He's the most educated person that I've met on biblical and alien stuff, right? And he says, did Christ send you, or whatever you would say?
Yeah, I would definitely test them.
They would be acknowledging that
because
that
the moment
they report to the same God.
Their answer, 100%, their answer will determine. And you know how you test them? Did Christ come in the flesh as God? That's how you test them. All right? Because Christ already came. There's been one God. There can only be one Christ, meaning God in human form. Okay? So now we were warned there's going to be other people in the end time saying, well, the Christ is here. The Christ is here. And it says, don't believe them. All right, these people are antichrists. They're trying to steal the show. Okay, so when we're told to test the spirits, no matter what shows up, you know what I mean? Test them.
And this is why when Spielberg says things like, come watch my movie, Disclosure Day, it's going to change your view on religion. It's going to change your purview.
Did you see it?
Christians, I did see it.
Yeah.
Christians are going to rethink everything, which it did not do, by the way. But essentially, what I've heard from most Christians is, if aliens show themselves, like, it's just going to confirm what I already know.
Mm-hmm.
And so
It's going to confirm what the Bible told us.
Right. So Spielberg is just trying to put butts in the seats. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, where did all those ancient religions come from? Again, Acts 7:42, God turned away, gave them over to worship the host of heaven. I'm done. You guys don't want me? Do your own thing.
So your UAP experience was a religious experience at the end of the day.
Turned into one. In the beginning, it was, I questioned everything. Is the Bible real? Obviously what I saw was real. But then at that point, it would take 7 more years before he would literally wake me up and say, I got something to show you. You know what I mean? Don't worry and fret about this. I've got it. They all work for me, good or bad. You know what? And the ones that left, I'll take care of them. You know what I mean? Just keep your focus on me.
So you've created documents. Most people probably
Yeah, I can't see it.
There's pages and pages of information on this team that is absolutely well organized. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Personally speaking, I've never seen timelines created this way.
Yeah, the timeline was actually my first project. And so what I had done was down the one side I had put, I think it was like the year. I created a reference number. The age, so was it the Dark Ages, was it the Ice Age, was it, all this other stuff, notable people in history, when each world religion came into existence, major world events, and then angels, star beings, random sightings, in a column, and then on the very end it was that was where I did commentary, but everything that I did, I wanted to be able to create a cross-reference, like you get down to Oppenheimer, where we talk about, let's see, Oppenheimer, 1945, under 7.4 with the atomic bomb. All right. And one of the quotes that he had said, I become death. He is literally quoting the Bhagavad Gita, right? But when did all the world religions come into existence? When you go through everything, I wanted it to be able to be cross-referenceable. Someone was like, you should write a book because they just wanted my notes. You know what I mean? This was all just for me to help on myself.
When you say they wanted the notes, are we talking about the History Channel folks?
No.
Or who is they?
Friends, when I finally started, kind of opening up and saying, hey, this is kind of what I've been doing and, stuff like that. They're like, oh, man, I'd be so interested to see that. Well, initially it was just for me, just to be able to lay it out so it wasn't so overwhelming. And then someone's like, you should write a book. I'm sure other people want to see this too, because right now what we talked about today, you scratch the skin. We haven't even broke through the layers.
I believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think it's super cool and very interesting. I mean, I take a look at, that's what I was asking with the UAP question again, going back to the podcast I listened to. It's like very much the way that he was describing it was that people seeing beings or like some, they think it's exorcism or it's demons posing as aliens or whatever. So that's, again, connection to J.D. Vance describing that. And you can tell when he's talking to Rogan that he's not explaining it very well. Or you don't want to go completely down the rabbit hole
because you're the vice president.
Because you're the vice president. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whereas like if you listen to that and then you listen to this Winston and Marshall podcast, you're like, oh, okay, I kind of see where J.D. Vance's mind is going.
Right.
And so you are kind of seeing the deception play per se. And that's why people are like, are they interdimensional? Are they demons? Are they,
Right.
And then some are saying, hey, these are, they're posing as aliens but they're demons.
Well, and it's interesting enough too, because, a lot of times when you had the nuclear testing, a lot of UAPs showed up. When you had the Fukushima meltdown, there were sightings there. When did the meltdown happen? Like 2018, something like that?
What is it about those events that you think draws them?
Well, and again, are they demons? Because we know that, there's some angels that watch out for us. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like the difference, I don't know if you know, this is one or this is the other. But you're seeing another dimension, quote unquote, playing in our space.
Right.
So, like, just say anywhere else in the world, they have, let's say, quote unquote, good guys, bad guys, and they're in a neutral territory of like a new civilization. Like what's going to happen? Like they're checking things out. They're doing whatever.
Well, and again, you got to remember,
makes that interesting.
Angels are curious too, and I'm going to tell you right now, in all honesty, because everyone's always like, oh, you talking like alien, like little green men and stuff like that. Have you ever seen the description of some of the angels in the Bible? You ever wonder why people pass out when they see them? They literally, and the angel always has to say, fear not, touch him, put his hand on his shoulder, give him his strength back to stand up. Okay. When you look at the seraphim, the description of the seraphim or the description of the cherubim or stuff like that, how would I not faint out of fear? You know what I mean? We can't even begin to the concept, and they try through like 15th century paintings and drawings, right? And so I think at that point, when you just literally biblically ground yourself in faith, it does not matter. Because at that point, you can test them, you can challenge them, that, again, man made a little lower than the angels, but given dominion over the earth. And why does it say, one of the big promises is that we will judge the angels. They know God and saw God. Right now we're living on faith.
So I guess one of my questions is, if people want to see this, your work, what you laid out, like, is there a place for them to see?
So right now, that's one of the things that I've been looking at is the book's almost done. I got like 20 more pages to edit. And
what's the book? The title? What's it on? What's?
So it was interesting because I'm like, well, originally I compiled all my notes together, but then I started doing commentary. I wanted to bulletproof every single thing with scripture only. I'm like, you know what? If you can't bulletproof it, what's the point in doing it, right? Mm-hmm. So it was like, all right, I needed to come out with stuff. I wanted to come out with the science, the history, the mathematics, when you look at throughout history, you know, things that had happened, show you that progression of the line. I was like, well, how would I do this? And at that point, I think the final one that I came out with is religions, but the S is, you know, got the around it, and the host of heaven, religions in the host of heaven. Right underneath is the whole reason Acts 7:42, God turned away, gave him over to worship the host of heaven. So on the cover, obviously on the left side, down the got different, all the different civilizations throughout history. All right. And I put, you know, are the aliens, gods, angels. And on the right side, I had put all the different constellations that all these cultures mention, right? You know, and UFOs are chariots of God. And I was like, you know, kind of see why the ancients were forming religions. Why were the ancients forming religions? You know, and Psalm 68:17 said the chariots of God are twice 10,000. So I'd put, what are they, where are they from, and how many kinds are they? It's a biblical view of sightings, not from this world. You know what I mean? So people, again, where did they get the concept to pray to something not from here? It's not, you know, and all these cultures that had that. So yeah, it's you know, chapter 1. When is it? Chapter 1, obviously the event, the dream, reality versus belief, because I'm challenging what I believe. You know what I mean? Bible statistics, modern history. And then chapter 2 is the research, which is all cross-referenceable. It's the longest chapter in the book. And then chapter 3 is the conclusion. So what I thought about doing was, once I get the last 20 pages edited, I'm going to try to find a way to take all, including the timeline, the other charts, with all the verses on them, and all PDFs. I want to try to see if I can attach them to the one PDF. And then at that point, just give it away for free. Email it to friends. Share it. You know what I mean? So,
have you talked to any, I would say, religious scholars or anybody, you know?
I did. So I was kind of actually just wondering that. Like, has anybody approached you, or have you approached anybody and said, "Hey, I want help getting this online," or like, "Hey, I would love to get this out there"?
So once I get it actually completed and just get it out there free, you know, I might approach some you know, publishers or whatever, see if they're interested in picking it up or whatever. But for me, there's so much data.
So yeah, well, what you're talking about, my head kind of wraps around it, and I see your charts just like that. I guarantee if I took a look at that, you're like, okay, it'll make more sense. I don't know if you could just do words.
No, words won't do it justice.
Yeah, it's just like your mind will go somewhere else, or it just doesn't. It's too cluttered. It's too And then I mean, if you talk to let's say contact the History Channel again, or Lou Elizondo, or you know what I'm saying, like something that's like, hey, what publisher would be the best to go about this? Who would be a good to get the word out, or to, you know, just talk about what you've thought or what you've
even just having a website out there.
Yeah, or so, you know, just curious, you know.
And I even thought about doing that, maybe even potentially, you know, getting a website maybe where I could just put the PDF on there and, you know, I almost had an idea for one, but I don't want to put the website name out there.
No, yeah, go, yeah.
Leave it for the next episode.
Yeah. If you launch the book and your website, you come back. Yeah, we'll talk about it again.
But I would love to get, you know, just if people are curious, they just want to see it for themselves, you know, because you look at like, why is it that, you know, 300 writings of, you know, what's his name? Is it like the Odyssey or, you know, Homer, whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just came out. It's a relevant topic.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of those things where you've got
so many translations of the Odyssey.
Yeah. So let's look at, you know, reliability and credibility. Other ancient writings that people have accepted without question. There's almost 1,000 manuscripts of Homer from around 900 BC that have been found, 300 of the Iliad and the Odyssey, that people accept without question. Almost 250 manuscripts of the Greek writer Plato from 370 BC that have been found to survive and are accepted without question. Socrates, he lived around 490 BC, is only known because of his students and historians. 0 of his writings have been found, yet people accept without question what was told of him. The Bible has 25,100 manuscripts that have been found, yet it's questioned repeatedly with doubt. Why?
That's going to be a compelling read for a lot of people. And what I think is so interesting about your work specifically is that I think if I were non-religious, right? If I were a non-believer, or, that could take a lot of different flavors. You have approached all of this work with the history context behind it, with date ranges, with world events. So you may be non-religious, right? To keep it simple, but maybe you're really big into history.
I love history. History and science I love.
But I think your work speaks to those people. And maybe, I'm not saying the goal here is to win hearts and minds, but maybe you have a history buff reading this who finds themselves to be non-religious, and they start to grapple with the fact that, well, man, maybe I've had this wrong the entire time, because based on history, which they believe in, they start to have questions.
Because I say you're doing the cross-reference, right? And obviously there's multiple translations of the Bible and stuff, but you're going in and out. So you know what I mean? Like you got put tons of hours and time into this.
I've got a science section.
Yeah.
I've got the history section.
Yeah, that's what would be interesting to talk with other people that are kind of in this realm. Like I said, the Graham Hancocks, the others that are like, they're not on this path, but they're on a similar type path of like history of mankind, why the religions, multiple religions cross-section each other with giant events and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting, like I said, I was curious if you had talked to anybody about it or anybody within this realm or this community, because it's a, look, I'm sold, but you know what I mean? Like I'm very interested. Like this is like definitely has piqued my interest. We've been talking about it for 3 hours, but it definitely is like, it's really cool.
It's almost
cool is
so
probably not the right word, but
it's so much to absorb though, that it's almost intimidating to take in.
Yeah.
And so the question becomes, do we have a website that can like visually move people through different pieces?
Yeah.
But like maybe that's an idea.
And I think the thing too, that you reference all the Bible verses there, because people are going to absolutely try to tear it apart and be like, all right, I'm go straight to this section. What's the context? What's the translation? You know what I mean? Like it's going to happen. Like people are going to want to challenge.
And I think that's why I put all of it down so they can find it for themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because even talking with you, I'm like, my brain was like trying to wrap around it. Like I gloss over it.
I've been trying to wrap my brain around this since Justin and I talked on the phone 6, 7, 8 years ago, whatever. And I'm still very much, because I'm a natural skeptic, and I kind of feel like you were the same way. And that's why you started research. Like I'm skeptical of everything until I can see proof of it. And this is the closest thing that I've seen that speaks to the skeptical brain to say, I'm not here to convince you to have a faith. I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm here to just walk through what I've discovered.
Well, and I think that's actually another part of God's love story to us is, all right, if we truly seek him, he wants to reveal us. I've heard it said best. Truth has no problem being questioned. Okay?
Yeah.
But a lie hates being questioned. Don't challenge me. Don't, all this other stuff. All right. Why does God tells you seek, search? 2 Timothy 2:15, study to show yourself approved. All right. Why are we told? Because he says, I want you to be skeptical, because if you truly search for me, you'll find me every time. You will, you know what I mean? So in that moment, he says, you came that inch, I'll come the rest of the way to you. But you know what? I saw that first step. Thank you.
Do you think that looks different for people? Do you think that your step could look, because in my military career, I started off as a tanker, and never in a million years did I see myself in the chaplain corps doing what I'm doing.
Right.
Never. And I've often had the thought, like, this is God's way of working with me or through me. Now I don't go to Bible studies. I don't go to a specific church. Like I very much have a complicated relationship with religion in general, but I'm there for the First Amendment right, which is equal access to all religion for all soldiers. But I wonder often if this isn't my way of working with God to whatever his end state is for me. And if yours is just, I have to put him in this tower, I'm going to give him this experience, and then Justin's brain is going to bring this to people in the world that are skeptical of him and that want more from him.
He gave me ADHD, and I use it to my advantage.
There you go.
It's a gift. I don't look at it. And people ask me all the time when I'm at the track, how do you do it? You're sitting there 8, 9, 10 hours a day, yapping away, talking about all the cars, all this other. You're going through absolutely everything. They're like, how do you do it? And I'm like, I just hold the microphone, click it on, and let the ADHD take over.
So you're kind of talking about what you do for a living. What do you do in your free time?
Yeah.
I mean, what is
good transition?
who is Justin outside of this?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I got out of the garden and everything, stuff like that. So, but no, you know, it's comical. I'm almost starting to wonder, which is weird that I'm even in this position because I am not technologically savvy when it comes to motors.
Yeah.
But I'm I've actually been announcing at Brainerd International Raceway for a little over, well, I started in 2012, but then full time, I think I kicked on in like 2015, 2016, something like that.
How do you get that job? I mean, that's always kind of my first question. Like, how do you get
Interesting enough, 26 years ago, I started as a volunteer where I wanted to, they're like, hey, we need someone in the water box. So back in 2000, I was like, wait a minute. You get to let me stand in front of the cars on the starting line of the drag strip. I get to stand between the cars, put down water, but I get to watch racing for free. I don't have to pay to be here. You know, so that was kind of my foot in the door. Pretty soon I was being a paid employee, and a decade goes by, 12 years go by, 15. It's like, wow, all of a sudden times. I got called up from the start line, well, from the stop sign where I was working the ready line on the drag strip there. And it was like, Mr. Doerfler, can you fold up your chair, come up to the tower and, come up to the tower. I thought I was getting fired. I'm like, oh boy, what did I do? You know, 'cause it was post-deployment. I wasn't the most happy person, you know. So I'm like, well, what did I do? And I'm running through the Rolodex of all the reasons I should be fired. So next thing I know, they're like, well, you've been a DJ. You're not afraid to be on a microphone. Believe it or not, I was kind of shy, actually. And I'm like, what do I know about drag racing? They're like, because our announcer needs to go for a dinner date. Can you finish out the day? And I'm like, what do I know about drag racing? They're like, just read the screen. It'll tell you. So I tried it. And first couple of days, I'll tell you, I'll be honest, there was some stammering and stumbling and stuff like that. But a couple of people started showing me the way. And before you know it, it was like, I was getting asked to do another race. Then I was getting asked to do another race. And before you know it, it's like, I got asked to go down to, you know, Australia, and then pretty soon I was, you know, the last few years I started going around the country, and being a motorsports announcer was not on my bingo card of that anything that I thought God would have me do in life.
Yeah.
What for the people that don't know about Brainerd or the International Speedway up there, like is this a big speedway? Is this, you know, is it nationally known?
Yeah, so it's Brainerd. It's a Brainerd International Raceway, you know, and you can always check out the website birmn.com. It's crazy because last season we have a 3.1 mile road course, which we call the Donnybrook, in honor of the origin of the track. It was Donnybrook Speedway, opened in '68, and in 1972, it was renamed when it was purchased by an SCCA racer. They renamed it Brainerd International Raceway. Well, the name stuck. So you got a 3.1 mile road course. On the mile stretch, on the straight stretch, they were back in the 80s. They're like, you know what? Let's put in a drag strip. Let's do drag racing. And so back in 82, I think it was the first national event, Quaker State Nationals, whatever that was. But at any rate, last season, we had the new track speed record set by Brittany Force, you know, one of the NHRA teams, John Force Racing there, but she hit 341 mile an hour in just over 3.5 seconds.
Wow.
So when you're watching a top fueler or a funny car that, you know, you're looking at a 12,000 horsepower engine. That's a combustion engine, by the way. It's not a rocket.
Yeah.
They're running nitromethane, you know. They lose, when you see raw fuel come out of a single pipe, they just lost 1,500 horsepower.
Jeez.
You know, so you can hear these cars from Camp Ripley. If the winds are blowing from the north, you'll hear them off in the distance. It sounds like an 810. You'll hear it for 4 seconds. 3-4 seconds, yep. So, you know, and it's been, you know, drag racing at BIR. We've got everything from drifting, drag racing, roll racing. We've got super bikes, snowmobiles on water, mud trucks in the zoo. We got everything. It's a huge 600 to 800 acre facility. So
Yeah. That's pretty dope.
Dude, you got to go shoot some stuff up there.
I would
think
love
that
to.
would be
Well, a
dope.
buddy of mine shoots motorsports. So
Okay.
he's in Minnesota and Wisconsin a lot. So my buddy Kurt, shout out to Kurt, helped train him over at Black Rifle Coffee. And then when they let everybody go, he had a bunch of his dad actually won the Baja 1000 or whatever back in like the 90s, like actually won it. So he's been around it forever. And he just got into it, had enough connections. Now he'll go film the Baja. He goes film a bunch of other stuff. Comes out to Wisconsin, whatever was in Wisconsin, And he does. I don't know if he's done Brainerd, but he's done the ERX. What is that one? The Elk River.
Okay.
Or whatever. Or he's done Minnesota before, so he's actually come through a few times. So yeah.
Yeah, we got everything from drifting. We got a truck jumping a drift car. So I mean, we do absolutely.
That's
everything.
sick. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
pretty
great
cool.
photo.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean that's like so. That's a crazy occupation to get into. You know, it'd be like, oh no, I know.
So you were the voice of Brainerd International.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing the Wednesday night drag. You know, the Wednesday night wide open Wednesdays we call them now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's where there's drifting and drag racing. The cool thing about the wide open Wednesdays, it's not for racers.
Yeah.
It's for everyday people. So if you want to take your everyday driver
Oh, really?
down the track and get a time slip,
Yeah.
That's cool.
it's like $35 and
Yeah,
you
that's
can make
awesome.
as many passes down the drag strip. You get a time slip.
Yeah.
You know.
That's pretty sweet. Take my Expedition Max.
Yeah.
Just hit the gas.
We've had people run minivans, motorcycles, motorhomes. We had a Winnebago ran like a
that's
52,
great.
58 second run.
Nice. That's awesome. So that's what I was thinking is because I mean, I imagine you have the announcer voice or something like that. Is there like a specialized little tone that you take?
Sometimes, yeah. So like when I get into, all right, ladies and gentlemen, hey, guess what? We're coming up next. We're going to have you got to kind of be able to have that
Yeah.
what do they call that? Wow. Train of thought just.
You're putting your game face on effect.
Yeah, kind of.
Pretty much. Because I look at it as, we're entertainers.
Yeah.
You got to keep the crowd interested. You got to keep the crowd hyped. Inflection, there's the word.
Inflection.
Yeah, people say that I have that or I can use it to my advantage. So I'm like, okay, why not?
Have you ever thought about branching out and like going into like baseball, football, basketball?
Yeah, now that you're like in
If
it.
you were to ever receive an offer for like going,
Well, it was crazy because I got asked this past January to do a snowmobile event. I'd never been to a snowcross event in my life.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I've never been to one.
Yeah.
They're like, well, you'll figure, we'll help you out or whatever. And I was like, they gave me a crash course. And honestly, I thought I botched it. So, but a week later, all of a sudden they're like, hey, we need you down in Eau Claire, Wisconsin next week. And call the wife, tell her you're coming down. We're putting you up in a hotel. So I'm, babe, I guess we're going to Eau Claire.
sweet.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking like if you just use that announcer voice and just read your
book.
do the audiobook.
You
like
can do the audiobook.
I read the audiobook like
well,
that.
and the nice thing is because since I was the one that wrote it, I can actually give you the, you can always tell where someone is, where their mind is going, because at the end of the sentence, does it taper up?
Yeah.
Asking a rhetorical question, does it taper down, making a statement? Does it, all these things? Is it direct? Is it final? So yeah.
And Joe, I can't even. I was going to do the voice like, "Hey, religion's in the host of heaven." Check out my new
It kind
book.
of seems to me like the world is your oyster. Like you could do a podcast if you wanted to. You could do a Bible study and post it on.
Oh, dude, I love doing Bible studies. I encourage people to come over to my house all the time. We sit in the garage. I got the maps, the charts up on the wall, and it's just like everything has been laid out. As a matter of fact, I was going to show that to you before we're done today, or after we get wrapped up. But
Yeah.
there's so much.
Like I said, there's so much to do. Like, and then within, like I said, not only you have faith, religion, but you have the UAP, the UFO, like that type of stuff, all wrapped into one.
There's
like
so much that appeals about
like I
your
immediately
story and what you're doing.
100%. I immediately think of like all the people that you're seeing on podcasts. Like I just watched some. She's not even in this realm, but she's to ancient civilizations. Immediately, this crosses path. Like she's going to Myanmar and to or not Myanmar, sorry, into like Thailand and to India and like looking at all these structures that they're like people like these weren't built with what we know. Like the archaeologists are basically wrong. Like this, they didn't build it. This
we
way.
had a
And
white
prime
book
example.
history. You talked about that
exactly.
earlier.
Look at the Hopi Indians. Look at the Aborigines, stuff like that. How did they always say what we would probably say gate of heaven or portal? What did they always do? They drew a swirl. That was basically the symbol of, hey, some beings stepped through this.
At some point, they
portal.
saw
At some
it.
point,
They saw it.
Yeah, yeah.
So when all of these cultures are writing down what they saw, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden it's time to pay attention who's who and who's not for who's against who. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Just makes me think of some of those hieroglyphs that you see or some of those carvings where it's like people with like multiple arms.
Yeah.
Right. And like it looks like something from out of this world.
Yeah.
And it looks like you've got the beams coming down from
Yeah.
the heavens, right? Like it's just how and why and where and what are we missing as a civilization?
Well, look at it in Genesis 6, especially when you start looking, you talk about in the days of Jared and the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and after. Okay. So you got probably some fallen angels making a pact or whatever. But the thing is, what basically happened? Gene editing. Okay. All of a sudden, you get a destruction on the planet. Everything just went absolutely haywire. All right. Now we enter your folklore of centaurs, half horse, half man, half, you know what I mean? You got in Egyptian, you've got the body of a man, you're talking about Thoth, or Thoth, and the head of a bird. You've got these abominations, if you will, but at that point, it causes a global destruction. Now, all of a sudden, we're doing gene editing again. Look at CRISPR. They actually, I believe it was 2016 or 2018, CRISPR was actually considered being put, I believe, on the weapon of mass destruction list for gene editing. But they didn't. I'm like, oh boy, jeez. And right now they're, we can start making dinosaurs again or whatever with, I think they made, 8 movies of why we shouldn't do that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
the Woolly Math Project
Woolly
is a very real
Mammoth
thing.
Project's a real thing. Yeah, that's because that's the closest it would be able to survive.
Well, then you had the lamb, or is it Dolly the lamb that got cloned?
Cloned completely. Yeah.
Yep, the first successful
copy. That was like years ago.
Oh yeah, that was
like 20
back
years
when
ago.
when we were really
We were like we were in like grade school, I think, when they did that, or something like along those lines. But no, yeah, I mean it's like I said, we could go down 50 other rabbit holes, but no, this is awesome. This is great. I mean, this isn't out yet, but where can people find you? Or
are you on socials?
Yeah, on socials. Or
sound
are you on? Yeah.
Believe it or not, I'm actually kind of shy, so I'm just like, oh boy,
They're gonna find you here on this episode.
Yeah.
Pretty much for now, until I think I find someone to help me create a website.
Yeah.
And then once I can just upload this as a PDF, people can just go to it and download it all themselves and just for free.
Yeah.
And once they download it, share it.
Yeah. And my thing is, it would be cool to see you reach out or see you have conversations with some of these other people that are in this space.
Oh, I could see you sitting down at a table and just blowing some minds.
Oh yeah. It'd just be like, hey, this is what I found. What's your cross reference? Like, what do you know that could add or subtract or challenge or do whatever?
Right.
Like I said, I'm like trying to like racking through my brain of just like the people I've seen on other shows.
You have your life story is fascinating.
Yeah. This is like
from service to certainty, really, with your religious faith belief system. I mean, this is really
cool. And that it goes to we can all grow up in Sunday school, but it's meaningless if mind, body, and spirit. When God said, "Let us make man in our image," like the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, we have a mind, body, spirit. You can feed your mind with knowledge. You can feed your body with nutrients and the proteins it needs. But if you starve your spirit, you're going to walk around blind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why am I here? Where are we from? Where are we going? You know what I mean? So I want to help people get their wheel back in balance. He's been waiting for us the whole time. You know what I mean? And because he helped me, it's like I feel it's my job to get out. You look at Task Force 6-8. They used that as Isaiah 6-8. Whom shall I send? Who will go? Here am I, send me. Punch that time clock. Take your research and go to work. Share it.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've sent your early work to some people, and I've just always said that, like, well, I'm like, no, man, he said to share this. It's yours.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, that's all. I mean, so like I said, hopefully, this goes out in 2 weeks. So unless you finish in the next 2 weeks.
And I'm so busy in the next month.
Well, we'll kind of keep people updated with it. But yeah, I mean, I would say let's plug it, but it's not done yet. So I hope people enjoyed the episode. And I mean, like I said, I would say contact you, but you said you're kind of a shy guy. So maybe we'll do a round 2. We'll come back.
Sounds like they're reaching out to you, Ethan.
Yeah.
To get access.
Yeah. I'm going to be like, there you go. Yeah. And off.
Yeah, because I think I've only got Facebook and YouTube, and it's just one of those, unless I have personally met someone, maybe I should create an account
Well, it'd be cool to see, like you say, you do something along these lines of like doing like a cool YouTube
I could
channel
see-
breakdown, 10-minute pieces, like this piece.
I could
part
see
one.
this episode building at least some type of inquiry where people are going to want to be able to say, "Hey,
Yeah.
can you send to me what you got?" Or
Yeah.
whatever. It'd be cool.
I got a clip and description it, right? But yeah.
Oh, that'd be sweet if I was able to get the whole PDF and you put it.
Yeah. But I mean, like, for this episode. But yeah, I mean, like I said, though, I think there's I'm going to say a big future in this, but like, I think, once you get it up and running, talk to some people with some media stuff, like I said, even just on YouTube, or I don't know if, like, say you have the contacts with the History Channel guys, but like Lou Elizondo or those guys, I mean, I think this would be this is like a cool History Channel episode. Like those producers at History Channel, like this in itself would be a cool, like, hey, what do you think? I mean, they did Ancient Aliens. Holy
Right,
shit.
right.
I mean, like how that guy was a meme for like 15 years, Like,
He had hair, I do
aliens,
not.
Yeah, aliens. Like they did a show with him.
Yeah.
I feel like you could at least squeeze out one episode of like just this with you, So, but yeah, bro. Well, thanks for coming on, and I would say people, go to Brainerd International Raceway to go hear your beautiful voice. And Nate, do you want to plug yourself at all, or no?
I got nothing to plug.
Got nothing to plug?
I got
Okay.
nothing to plug. I mean, I'm just happy to be along for the ride today. to be
Yes,
honest.
this was great. I'm glad you brought Justin on. This was great. So, Justin, thanks for coming on.
No, thank you. Thanks for having
All
me.
right, take care.